What's up, guys and gals? Welcome to the Extreme Nerd Table, guys. I actually have somebody with me today. I actually have Rando with me. So let's get Rando in here. What's up, Rando?
Hey, hey, I'm here.
Yeah. So we heard about Chadwick Boseman, and did you even know he had colon cancer? Nobody. I don't think
No,
anybody did.
nobody knew, man. The only people that knew were like the people in his circle.
Yeah. I'm wondering if he told Marvel like when they were after filming, or something. Because I honestly, if he did, I think it would have leaked out anyways. If he
Yeah,
actually told
I
somebody.
think he definitely had he had told somebody at Marvel, it would have
Yeah,
leaked
yeah.
because
But
Marvel they are a business, they are a
Marvel,
company.
yeah, but Marvel doesn't have good plugs on their leaks because they get a lot of leaks. I noticed.
Oh yeah,
But look at so somebody actually took pictures of the Shang-Chi set. So
oh did they?
so
I didn't see
yeah,
it.
yeah. Like they had like overhead stuff. They had like so I forgot they had a bunch of pictures about it, but yeah. So
No, I know people are just dying for some Marvel content to come out. I know people are waiting for
right,
Black Widow.
right.
The next one after that is the Eternals.
Well, the New Mutants came out. So the New Mutants came out this weekend.
Yeah, the New Mutants came out, but that was really more like what Fox had worked on. This isn't like
Right.
even though Disney
What I
owns
he-
Fox.
what I hear, it's not a bad movie. So what I
Yeah,
hear.
yeah. I mean, I've heard mixed reviews, but the majority of reviews from people who have seen it that I know, they've
Mhm.
all liked it. So that's a good
Yeah.
thing.
So yeah, that's a good sign. So finally, Fox actually did something right before they gave it over to Disney.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of pointless.
No, I know I was joking around, but finally they did something. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, I worked all week this week, all the way up to Saturday. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah, not
It's,
really.
it's
It
almost
was
like
a
back to normal now for you.
Yeah, it's a pain. No, because back to normal would be no work on Saturday and Sunday off, and work 5 days a week. That would be normal. Still not
Yeah.
normal
Are
because
you
of
making
all
are you making more money, or is just you're working more days, less hours?
more days and normal hours again. So I set my back to normal.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
but
good,
it's
man.
still it's still a little abnormal. You know what I mean? A lot of new machines are getting put in, a lot of new equipment and stuff like that. So what eh, here and there. Yeah, so yeah, the Chadwick Boseman thing happened this week. Yeah, bunch of not a bunch. I didn't see a bunch of stuff about comics or anything. Did you?
For comics, I just read that Scout Comics.
Right,
They just announced it today, like maybe like a couple hours ago.
right.
Scout Comics is going to do an imprint for kids, for like kids
Oh,
comics.
okay.
You know? So
That
that's cool.
that'd be cool. That's cool.
They're expanding, which is
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Like they might move their way towards doing like young adult graphic novels or
Right.
kids graphic novels. They might move that route because DC's had a lot of success with that.
Right.
I think Marvel has plans to do something like that also. That because that's
See,
they're a
but
business. They want to make money.
my big thing is they have the Marvel movies, Marvel TV shows, but they don't try to sell the comics. You know what I mean? Where all that content came from, they should have like a little bit of like I'm just using the Vampirella thing as an idea, but like
Yeah,
in the movie, why don't they hey, there's Vampirella comics you can read, or there's something besides the movie you can watch. There's actually other kind of content like hey, oh, you like the New Mutants? Ah, did you know there's New Mutant comic? Like trying to sell the comics to younger
absolutely.
readers and stuff.
I completely agree. Like I don't understand how they will invest so much money in advertising for the movie,
Yeah, but
for the
they bit
character.
and then they bitch about why are our comic sales so low, or why is this, why is that,
Right.
and one thing they could fix it with one problem, one issue, and that's it,
Yeah.
and then make an infomercial, make.
Yeah, I've always had the idea of, um, I've always had the idea that like if I were a celebrity, if I were like an actor, and I was having a successful career, one of the things I would love to do is help the comic book industry.
Right.
And so I always had this idea of what I would do is I would go and I would try to contact the celebrities who play these superheroes. So like I would go to like Robert Downey Jr. I would go to Ben Affleck. I would go to Henry Cavill. I would go to Chris Evans. I'd go to every one of these actors and I would ask them. Listen, you guys do charities all the time. You do this, you do that. How about donating $100,000? And we use the $100,000 per actor, right?
Right.
We use the $100,000, and what we do is we take that money and we go and we purchase comic books from local comic book stores, like where they live, or they can choose comic book stores all across the U.S. Right?
Right.
And when they go to use that money, they go into the stores, they purchase the comics from the stores. Then what they do is they take those comics that they bought from the stores and they hand them out and they give them out for free. They give them out free to like teens and kids.
Or they could just not even being celebrity wise, but they're already working for Marvel. They can ask Marvel, hey, give me some Captain America comics, give me some Black Widow comics.
What you want to do is you want to help the comic book industry, and one of the ways to help the comic book industry is to help.
That's what I'm saying. Store. They can because
no. What you're talking about is that they go to Marvel. It will come directly from
Marvel. Directly from Marvel, but go to the shop, actually sign every single one. You know what I mean? And then
signatures. No,
you don't think so?
They already do conventions and they already charge a lot for signatures. They're not going to give free signatures. Okay.
Right.
That's just a gimmick, right? We don't want to do a gimmick. We want people reading comic books. We want them getting comic books. You want to put the comic books in the hands of kids and teens who don't buy comic books, who don't read comic books. You want them to be introduced to this is like make it their first comic book.
And one thing I noticed more and more about this generation, there's more manga readers than comic book readers. I noticed.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it's funny. It's like I finally realized why mangas sell better than comics. So comic books, you have different artists, different writers. So you have different stories. So you don't have the same consistency.
Right.
Now mangas, you have the same art style, you have the same writers, and they work on these books, and they do like 30 volumes, 40, 50, 80 volumes of these like graphic novels. Now, like
What's up, Puff?
Yeah, I found out that a lot of these artists that draw the mangas, right?
Right.
It's a team, like it's several different artists, right? And they all draw the same art style. The manga, the anime.
Well, that's the Asian style of work. That's the Asian style of work. You know how it is.
Yeah.
It's
because
if you look at In-Hak Lee's, Art Germs, all the ones that are Korean, if you look a little bit, they're a little similar. They're a little bit like consistent, but they can make a bunch of covers consistent because where Art Germs started was in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong style is they don't give a they want that stuff out as fast as possible. So he can. So if he's getting tons of covers, it's easy for him to get it out. He'll figure a way to get it out to the public.
The difference between manga and the American style comics is that we have more variety than manga does.
Right.
But what manga has and it works for them so well is they have consistency. Plus, some of the mangas that they put out, they are mangas from popular animes. You know? So like that's another problem that the US has, right? Like the US doesn't have like an animated or television. I mean, they have television series,
but they don't have the adult style. They don't have enough adult style cartoons. I mean, there are, but they're not enough. There are not enough out there. You know what I mean? American style. There's plenty of Japanese style because if you actually look at Dragon Ball, the actual Japanese version, it's way different. It's because there's a lot of stuff that's in it that the Americans cut out of it. If you actually look at the actual
Japan really knows how to market those properties.
Right.
You know, they know how to market their properties, and then they care more about quality, right, than quantity.
Than quantity. Yep. But Americans care about quantity more than quality.
Yes.
Because what can I put more of instead of getting, you know.
So that's the thing is like I think a lot of manga readers. Their art style is just very simplistic. Right. And so because it's so simplistic, you know, you don't see people talking about how awesome the art is.
Right.
Because all the art's pretty much the same.
Right.
You know, and they know that the people who are doing the books, it's not just one person specifically doing the book. It's a few people all with the same art style.
Right.
What they care more about the writers than they do about the artists, I think. And again, like not to mention when you look at the mangas, a lot of the mangas they're in black and white.
Right. So and it's easier to print and easier to process.
Cheaper,
yeah.
Cheaper. You don't have to worry about paying a colorist. You don't have to worry about paying extra to color the pages. You know, so it's like, you know, they save so much money. So much money.
Because the similar thing that we had over here that similar to manga was the what was it? The comic that was Scott Pilgrim. That was the closest that was look similar to a comic almost. I mean,
right.
Manga.
Well, I mean, that was smart. That was smart for I forget the writer's name. It was smart on him to do that. He knew that if he made his book a manga style book, that it would attract the manga readers, which has a higher selling market than American comic books.
Right.
Part of the reason I think American comic books don't sell as well, though, is because you have companies like Marvel
that don't market.
No, it's not that. It's that they constantly raise the prices. They constantly raise the prices of the comics. You know, think about it. I'm paying what, $5 a month, maybe $6 a month for Hulu. That's how much a comic book costs. You know,
eight. I actually looked. It's actually $8.
I got the promotion.
Oh, $12.99. It's 12 for all three for ESPN. For yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, you know, like there's all these things that people are investing their money in, and things that they get more value out of it, right?
Right.
When you buy a comic book for $5 and it takes you maybe 10-15 minutes to read the comic book, right? When you're done reading the comic book, where does it go? It goes in the box and it sits in the box.
Right.
You know, the only thing you can hope for is that there's a first appearance of a character in that book, and then the value of the book, the demand for it goes up. I will say though, the one good thing about comics now is because there's so few printing. So like if comic books ever blew up again to the point where they were selling millions and millions of copies, and then more people got into comic books, like millions of more people got into comic books, and it became like a more normal thing again, then all these comics for the past 20 years that are, you know, technically considered lower print than all the future comic books that are selling for millions of dollars, you know. But I don't think we will get to that. The only way we will get to that is two things. Our economy gets better and people have tons of money to just spend and blow their money. And two, comic books need to be cheaper. You know, they need to be cheaper. You know, they can't keep raising these prices. They just can't. The reason they're raising these prices is because their sales continue to decline. And so in order for them to break even or make some kind of profit, they increase the cost of the books. So when they increase the cost of the books, they're like, hey, look at that. Last year we were down $20,000, but now we're kind of like at the same thing. And all we did was raise our prices. But they don't understand that when you raise your prices, you're going to lose customers. So when you lose customers, you know, so it doesn't fix the problem. It's a temporary solution. Like I remember guys at DC Comics, I remember Dan Didio saying the same thing. Like remember when they did the whole drawing the line at $2.99?
Yeah.
That was DC's attempt at slowing down the progress of Marvel pushing their books to be $4. Every one of their issues to be $4.
What's up, 90? My boy 90's in the chat, or Chad's in the chat.
So like that's one of the things that really bugs me is that Marvel's at fault for why comic books are so expensive. and many of the Marvel fans don't even point it out. They don't even complain. They're just like Marvel, 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 and then
Right.
they'll complain when they pick up a Marvel comic book for $5 or $6. Look through the
Or
book,
eight, or eight, or
yeah.
7.
Yeah, they'll pick up the book, they'll look through it and be like, "Wow, I didn't like the art, I didn't like the story. I basically just threw away my money." You know,
Right.
that's when they'll start complaining. But it's just one of those, like, there needs to be a boycott. There really does. There needs to be, like, people need to gather together if they want change. If they want change, you want to save money on comic books, you want to save the comic book industry, you got to do a boycott. Because money talks. When DC did the drawing the line at $2.99, Marvel had already started making a bunch of their books $4.
Right.
They started making it $3.99. However, their sales declined because what happened was many other stores started ordering more DC books. They started ordering less Marvel. And so what did Marvel do to keep them from losing money? They took the books that they had recently moved up to $3.99 and they bumped them back down to $2.99.
Right.
And then that way stores started ordering more of those books again instead of cutting down those books now. And now things are even worse because now with the pandemic, you have businesses that aren't doing as well. You have businesses that are closing up shop. So now you're getting less and less comic book stores. So DC leaving Diamond to go through another distributor.
Well, one thing I've seen this week is Torpedo Comics, right, from in Vegas.
Yeah.
They all week they didn't receive the shipment from DC at all. So
Really?
so it doesn't mean that they're not that great. They're still getting bugs out, but that's one thing I'm noticing.
That could be depending on who they're ordering from, because I've heard more complaints about Lunar distribution than I have UCS.
Right.
And Lunar distribution is DCBS, which is the Discount Comic Book Service.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's Lunar on that coast. So Lunar is worse than
UCS. Yeah, it's funny is I had somebody who reached out to me and tried to get me to sign up with Lunar.
Right.
But in all honesty, I've had great experiences with UCS, and UCS is Midtown. So
big thing with what was it? Your Three Jokers. How did that go this week? Did you at least get rid of some of it or all of it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've got. Let's see here. I had one of my buddies who buys comic books from me from time to time. Out of nowhere, like I posted it on Facebook, and he saw it, and he's like, "Hey, I want all the covers." And so when I told him about the variants, he's like, "Well, I'll just do the 1 in 25 variant. I'm going to skip on the 100."
Right.
And
so, did you already get rid of the 100? What's the 100 look like, anyways? Like, is it a green? Is it that green?
Here. I'll show you. It's a black and white.
Right.
Of the one with the crowbar.
Right. Oh yeah. I got that one with the crowbar. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they could have done a different cover for it, but that's my opinion.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
So
man.
What's that? That's the prime. That's the prime issue, right, or whatever you were talking about.
Which one?
You remember how you said you had to order a certain amount of covers to get one big cover called the prime cover or something, whatever that was.
The premium covers.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the premium covers. It's a minimum of 50 copies.
Okay.
Per premium cover.
Okay. So you got one premium cover, I'm assuming, right?
I got them all. The reason I'm getting all the books is because there is one book that each store gets for every store that participates. For every account, for every store that participates, they get one book. And it's supposed to be all of the premium covers and the regular covers, I think. It's supposed to be all of them, all on one cover. Like a
okay.
Like a collage almost.
Okay.
Well, that's gonna.
So I was wondering. I'm like, huh?
That's going to be a very rare book.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because what did you think?
Of the Three Jokers?
The covers of the story.
Yeah, I mean, I love Jeff Johns. We
all love him. It's just,
I mean, the great thing about Jeff is that he's written so many great stories that he's very consistent. So, that when he's putting out a book, it's definitely worth checking out.
Right.
The cool thing about this is that it's only 3 issues long. So it's not like a really, really long or big story. So I don't
Right.
think you have to worry about it being dragged out and getting bored with it.
Right.
The best thing about the book is Jason Fabok's art. The
Right.
man is so good. He's so detailed. Like you could tell he put a lot of work. He put a lot of effort into this story. When an artist works this hard, and then you have like such a
Yeah.
great writer like Jeff, you know that this is going to be one of those Batman comics that people are going to talk about for the next 30 to 50 years. Yeah,
Right.
you know, like once, excuse me, once it hits like trade paperback or hardcover, and people are like, man, I'm looking for like a really good Batman story, or people are like, oh, I really love the Joker, I want to read a cool Joker story. This
Yeah.
will be it, you know, Batman 3 Joker.
I think it'd be, I mean, it'd be 3 Joker stories that are gonna be mentioned now because there's only been 2 so far
Mhm.
that I know of, Killing Joke and what's the other one? Oh, the Crowbar one where he hits Jason Todd with it.
Well, yeah, that's Death in the Family.
Right.
I mean, yeah, that's a major story, and that was done within the regular DC Comics issues.
Yeah.
Killing Joke was sort of like a separate, like standalone story that Alan Moore did. Another
Yeah.
very
Killing
popular
Joke.
one.
The damn it, I can't remember a Joker or whatever it was, right? Just called the Joker or
Oh,
something
the
like
Lee Bermejo. Lee Bermejo.
that. Yeah.
That's another one that but I don't hear too many people talking about.
Oh, or
Um,
was
I was going to say
was
the other one that I've heard people talk about, also a very great writer, is Grant Morrison when he did the
oh yeah.
Arkham Asylum.
Yeah. That's the one I was thinking. Yeah, that's the one I was
another
thinking.
kind of like quintessential Joker story that people
Right.
like to read. But when it comes to Joker, it's always the Killing Joke, because the Killing
Right.
Joke made such a huge impact in
Well,
the DC universe.
if people haven't read the 3 Jokers yet, I would recommend them read The Killing Joke and The Death in the Family first before they read
Yeah,
that. I mean,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, personally, I don't think you have to read those.
Yeah, you don't have to, but if you want to get more,
Get the
if you
full
don't,
effect.
if you don't know who these characters are or something,
Yeah.
you might want to go do that first before you read it.
Yeah.
But
So,
I mean, a lot of people's mentioned it already, but in the book, there's explanations about Batman's scars, like how he got the scars. I thought that was kind of cool. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's already been mentioned a bunch, anyways. But it's all, you know what I mean? It's kind of cool. You see, say, yeah, this is how he got it. This is how he got this. This is how he got that. You know?
mhm. No, I'm really intrigued to see what they're going to put in the next 2 issues.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
Because, like I said, I think a lot of the first issue was just kind of set up, like build
Right.
up,
Right.
and then a nice, I don't want to say cliffhanger, but a nice ending to the issue.
Right.
I mean, I guess it is a cliffhanger because, like, you're like, okay, what happens now? You know,
Right.
with what happens at the issue. I don't want to say because I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
Even though I feel like if I were to spoil it, that would almost like be the guaranteed, like,
People want to go read the next one.
you tell them what happens in the book and they're like, oh, I have to read this now.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like it's one of those, like, back in the day, if I worked at a comic book store, I think I would have spoiled it. I think I would have just told them what happened in the book, and then they would have been like, what? Like, I gotta get that book.
Yeah.
I gotta read it.
Yeah.
But internet's different, right? The internet's different. Like, everybody has a shop to go to, and they all have their kind of like comic book guy that they go to and talk to, and find out, like, hey, what book should I check out?
Mine was Tim.
Huh?
Mine's Tim.
Yeah. Before it was me, and then
Yeah.
after I gave it up, then you got Tim.
Yeah. No, but the funny thing is, Tim recommends me more indies than anything. And I sometimes I really enjoy a lot of the indies he recommends, anyways. So.
Well, my guess is the reason he recommends indies is because you're such a big Vampirella fan.
Yeah, and I'm an indie guy anyway, so.
Right. If Tim was really good,
Yeah.
he'd sell you on Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
He was really good.
He's already I've been don't forget, in the beginning I was DC and I was Marvel. I was both. And I started not enjoying it because it was more event after event after event, and then not only that, but it was they weren't using their writers greatly, man, because it's like the only thing that was good on Marvel was Thor at the time. Everything else was like lackluster, you know what I mean? Nothing was.
Oh yeah. I mean, Marvel at this point, because they're trying to make as much money as they can make.
Yeah.
What they've done now is the new solution is, okay, instead of just raising prices on books, what we need to do is we need to pump out more books.
Right.
So now it's not about quality, it's about quantity.
Right.
Well, like I remember back when they were doing like Amazing Spider-Man, they were putting out like 3 to 4 issues every month. And this was like years ago, back when I worked at Demolition.
Right.
And I just remember like one of the subscribers like getting his books. And I always saw him take Amazing Spider-Man, and he would take the issues and he'd put them on the bottom of his stack of books. And so I was just started asking him like, hey, what do you think of the Spider-Man books? Are you enjoying them? And he's like, well, I'm a little behind. I mean, they're putting out a lot. He's like, I've read some of them. Some of them are good. Some of them not so much. So, like he basically gave me the impression like he just wasn't enjoying it. It wasn't consistent, right? Didn't have the good quality every month.
But like I said, same thing with DC same thing with DC with the New 52. It was, some of it was enjoyable, some of it wasn't. You know what I mean?
No, I agree.
So, yeah.
But I mean,
so that's the whole reason I went to indies, because I was enjoying the indies stuff more. I was like, oh hey, Image has a new #1. Read it, enjoyed it. Like Lock and Key came out this week. I'd rather read Lock and Key first before I read anything else.
Yeah.
It was like off the pile. I'm like, so that's telling you something. It's like the indies are writing a lot better. Their writers are getting more better than, because even I'm a Donnie guy, but even Donnie's getting kind of, you know what I mean? Because with his Venom run, it's a little, it's still good. Don't get me wrong, but
what really sucks though is when you work for big companies like DC and Marvel.
Yeah.
The real people in charge, which are the editors. Those are the people that really, they're so important, right?
Yeah.
Because they are honestly the ones that determine if the story's going to be good or bad.
Right.
Writers, like the sad thing is like, when you're an editor and you have a talented writer and the writer says, hey, I want to do this, unleash them. Unleash the Kraken. Like let the writers and the artists do what they want to do. Unless,
I mean, what it looks like they're letting Donnie do that a little bit.
A little bit, but I mean, like you said, you're starting to notice, like, it's not, his writing is not the same as it was when he first started.
Yeah. I mean, it's still up there. It's just some of it's like,
I mean, his writing and his stories and the characters that he's using, it's still better than more than half of what Marvel's putting out.
Right.
The sad thing is Marvel's taking advantage of retailers.
Yeah.
You have retailers, especially successful retailers, that order every issue. Even if it's going to be a story that's not going to sell well, even if it's not going to be popular, no one's going to give a shit about the story or the character.
Right.
They will buy it because it is a Marvel title.
Right.
And so
there's guys that are DC or the same thing. They're only getting DC and that's all they want.
Right. But keep in mind, Jeff. that DC doesn't put out as many comics as Marvel.
No, I know that. I'm just saying. Yeah. But I'm saying there's guys that are only.
Who's going to lose more money? The guy who orders all the DC books or the guy who orders all the Marvel books?
All the Marvel books, because all the Marvel books.
Absolutely.
But I mean, they'll both end up losing money. It's just it's not going to be, as much as the Marvel guy.
I'm saying which publisher hurts the retailer more?
Yeah,
DC.
Marvel.
Yeah.
Because Marvel is big company, man. It's Disney. All they care about is.
When you grab a Marvel previews, look how thick that Marvel previews is.
Yeah.
Right? And you flip through it, and you just count every one of those issues and books that Marvel's putting out. Like look at the new X-Men.
Probably about half the size of this. It's probably about half the size of the Marvel previews is probably about half the size.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, half the size of this thing.
Yeah, the Marvel previews has gotten thicker.
Yeah.
And it's because they're putting out more books and they're promoting more books.
Yep.
And then the sad thing is I'll go through Marvel previews and I'll read a writer's name and I'll read an artist's name and I'm like, I don't know who these people are.
Right.
I mean, it's good that they're trying to get new talent, but at the same time, it's like remember when they did when Marvel was promoting their Young Guns, right?
Yeah.
They were basically introducing like, hey, here's the new writer to look out for. This is the new artist to look out for.
Right.
But right now, it just feels like Marvel is just pumping out tons of stories that people
Yep.
just really aren't that impressed with. They're not happy with. The quality is just not that good. And then same thing with the event books, right? They're just
Yeah.
event after event after event.
Right.
You know,
And like everybody was saying, that event book looks like it's just a holding spot for the new event. It's just a holding spot for the other
Yeah.
event.
they took away the value of
Yeah.
the event books. The event books were supposed to be like a big story of the
Yep.
year. But when
Mhm.
Marvel puts out 2-3 event books in the same year,
Yep.
now now you're trying to figure out, okay, well, which event book is going to be the one to really invest in and purchase and read and enjoy, Plus on top of that, all the variants that they're doing. I think even comic book stores closing down, like some of that I
Right.
kind of just, well, the retailers themselves are responsible themselves because they are the ones that choose to order those books.
Right.
However, you have people who are new into the comic book business that open up a comic book store. They don't know any better. So because they don't know any better, they're going to order these books.
They're gonna over-order the books, and they're gonna be sitting on them, and they're gonna go in the dollar bin.
Exactly. And that's a loss, right? That's a loss every week, every month that they're taking a loss on Marvel books. So it's
And
tough.
I mean that's all the point of going hunting out there, digging in those bins, because you never know what you can find in the bin.
Yeah.
But
And
on the second part of it is, it hurt, like you said, it hurts the shop because, dude, they paid more than now it's in the dollar bin. They paid more than $1 for that book. Now
Yeah.
it's sitting at $1.
Imagine if it's a $5 book, right?
Yeah.
If they're lucky, they paid $2.50 for that book,
Right.
right? So if they put it in the dollar bin, they've lost $1.50
Mhm.
per book.
Per
You know?
book at that. And if they don't order one, if they ordered one book, it wouldn't hurt as much. But they order 100 books, 50 books, they get rid of let's just say they ordered 100, and they get left with 50. You know what I mean?
I mean, look at Marvel putting out second prints, third prints, fourth
Right.
prints, fifth prints.
And then on top of that, those and then they order another 100 second prints, 100 fourth prints, 100
they
this
wouldn't
print.
order that much.
But I'm just saying, but if they like you said, if they
they're
didn't
like
know
a big
any.
store like Midtown or something like that, or
Right.
maybe sure.
But I'm
But
just
yeah.
saying, if they didn't know any better, they
Right.
would order,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, man. Is like that's another reason why that's another example of proof that Marvel's books really aren't selling like they used to,
right,
because they didn't print out as many second, third, fourth, fifth printings of books, because because they didn't sell out.
right. Now,
If Marvel is selling out of these books, what does that mean? That means they're printing less copies, right? When you're printing less copies and it's selling out,
right,
then all these other stores are like, oh, well, we'll get the second print, and then the second print sells out, and then
Right.
the third print sells out, and then the fourth print sells out. So it just gets ridiculous. It gets ridiculous.
yeah, because I just like you were saying, went on live. Like I've been checking out Torpedo's live sales every day, so because they've been having a lot of live sales. Yeah, you never know what books you can find on there, and then if the book sits a little while, you can make offers on it. They can say no, or they can take the offer. A lot of the times they'll either say no, or I'll take this much for it.
Yeah.
And and then what was it? I saw a Dr. Aphra fourth print they put out, and and they put it out, and they go, hey, it's $50, it's a near mint, live auction sale, yeah. So
it's smart for them. It's smart, but I mean, the sad thing though is like, they need constant flow of money coming in.
right, but
They need to sell what they
Torpedo,
have.
like I said, Torpedo's another entity, because it's a new age comic shop, because they're doing live sales on Instagram, they're doing internet sales, they're doing you know what I mean, they're doing live art sales. Yeah,
you have to take into consideration, like, a lot of people who are just shoppers,
yeah,
they don't know what it's like to operate a small business.
nope,
They don't know what to do with that kind of money.
right,
You give them $20,000-$30,000 and say, okay, go open up a small business, budget your money, spend it on this, spend it on that. They would pull their hair out because they wouldn't know what to do.
right,
And then before you know it, you blink your eyes, that $25,000 is gone.
it's not, it's not gonna be
And then
there.
now, you're stressing because like now, like, do I even have enough money to pay rent?
Right.
Am I gonna get locked out of my own store? You
Right.
know, is my business done? Do I have to close up shop? You know,
Right.
so like all these things, all these different avenues of shops having, so like doing
But you want to hear the funny thing? Well, I've actually thought of one thing before. You know how there was mobile book trucks and stuff?
yeah,
I was thinking about it like a mobile comic book, thing, like a mobile comic book.
that'd be great. That'd be great. But you know what the problem there is though?
Yeah.
Diamond won't allow it.
Yeah.
You know?
See, that's the only issue. That's the only problem is if they would have. But
Now, if you have an online store,
right.
if you build a website and you have an online store, then they approve you for the account, right? And then
They
now you're
can't-
starting to get comics.
Right.
Then you can still do the mobile, you can do the truck,
Right.
But now you have to take into consideration things like how hot it's going to get in
Right.
the truck.
Right.
So you
Right.
want to
Right.
make
Right.
sure the comics are protected because they're going to be in bags and boards. You don't want the
Right.
plastic to be melting on the comics.
Right. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I was just throwing it out there, but it could be.
Yeah.
It could be like
Yeah.
just
But then
like trade wise, like that.
Yeah, the other thing you got to think of too is, the other thing you have to think of also is gas money,
Mm-hmm.
maintenance on the
Right.
truck.
Right.
We know cars, like if a car needs to be fixed, that's easily sometimes can be like $1,000-$2,000 that you got to come up with.
Right.
So you have to factor in like how many people are you driving back and forth, meeting up with, selling comic books. How much is your profit margin?
Right, I'm not talking about like that. I'm talking about like you know how like a mobile truck has what was it? I'm trying to think. The food truck type style. That's what I'm talking
about.
Oh, okay.
Talking about that.
But I'm not talking about dropping off books to people. I'm saying actual actually, like where. Yeah. Okay.
You basically are going to have to drop off books to people. You're going to have to go to destinations and locations where people are at.
Right.
And I'll tell you right now, people lining up for comics is not going to be the same as people lining up for food.
Right. But if you had somebody like Tim that can be a mascot type thing, yeah, it would help.
Maybe.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just messing around.
Tim is one of those rare people. Like, there's not a lot of people like Tim.
Right. That can actually get people's attention. You know what I mean? You would need somebody that can drive the truck and can actually get some people's attention.
And then I think the other thing too is that everybody has different schedules. Everybody has different times. So people, like one of the guys I was working with, he was like telling me, give a really, really large discount. And I'm like, I don't think
that won't work. That ain't gonna work. Because then you'll be losing money because you're giving the discount so freaking huge. Unless you order in bulk, like the online stores that or have those trades. They only reason the discount.
His
only
mentality.
Reason,
his mentality was, hey, because people buy comics online, right, and they have it delivered. But I still think that the majority of people who buy comic books, they like to go to stores.
Right.
They like to go to stores. They like to peruse. They like to go around. They want to go to stores when they feel like going to stores, right? So that's the convenience.
Yeah.
So if one person had a choice, like, do I get 30% off on my comics and then have the guy deliver the comics to me? Or do I pay 15%? I only get 15% off on comics.
Or 25%. Yeah, so depending on how big your pull list is, it's either a 15 or it's either a 20 to 25%, depending on.
It depends. Depends on the store, depends on the deal, and
and depends if the owner likes you or not, and then it could give you a bigger discount.
Right. So that's the thing. There's a lot of factors involved, but when you play around with the numbers, like when me and Tim were talking about working together, Tim was like, "Hey, man, a lot of these customers like to go to stores. They want the experience.
Right.
They don't want to just buy comic books and save money. Only like the hardcore like comic book collectors want to save money because these are guys that drop like $400 or $500 a month on comics. You tell them that you offer them an extra 10% off to save money. Well, you know what that means? Either more money in their pocket or more comic books that they can buy. Either or, But in this case, I think people are willing to pay more for comics to go to a comic book store and pick it up based on convenience. Plus, they just want the experience.
Right.
You know, so selling comic books online is great because like you have people on eBay, sometimes the stores that they shop at, you know, the books come in damaged or they're shorted and they don't have the copies that they want.
Well, I got a bunch of stuff coming in from Torpedo because I ordered a bunch of stuff from their live sale. So I got something really cool coming in. Again, I ordered something yesterday because I saw it. I'm like, oh, hey, I actually, it was a auction piece. So I only pay it because normally if it's a artist's signature and his what the hell do you call it when they draw on the cover? But the cover's already got stuff on it, but they make a little remark.
Yeah.
So there's a little remark on there, and it was a signature of the artist, and it's a print. And they go, oh yeah, it's the auction piece starts off at $1, da 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 da.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. But if you know how much an artist would charge you to sign the thing and remark the thing, you already know that's already some artists $50, $100 to remark. You know what I mean?
It depends on the artist, man. It depends on the artist.
But I'm just saying, if you know it's a known artist, they're gonna charge way more. And then that auction piece went for a lot lower than that everybody expected because everybody.
I think that's partially why people like to do auctions because the one thing that I you know that will never the one thing that will. You know,
the seller doesn't like the auction too much. The buyer likes it better than the seller does because the seller wants to sell it for this here, but the seller.
The sad thing though is that if that's how the seller feels, then they should start off with a minimum on the auction.
Right. I understand. Don't get me wrong. I understand that too. It's just I'm just saying. You know what I mean?
The audience. So if the audience doesn't feel like they're getting a good deal, they're going to stop going to the auction.
Right. And then plus, like how Torpedo throws it out. How Torpedo does it, they'll leave it up. Like they'll have. I'm giving an example. They have a little glass case that has a big enough ledge where they can put the books on top, and it has A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, all the way up to P. Yeah. So they would put it out there, but if it sits up there longer than a certain amount of time, and you don't think the price, you don't like the price on it, you can offer them a price.
Yeah.
I did. I've been watching them for a little bit, so I made sure they got to know who I was, and then finally offered a price on a book that was first works of Jenny Friesen's first work. That's over a couple $100 book. And I got it for $65 because nobody wanted to pick it up. Nobody wanted it for $75, so I'm waiting for it to hit the. There's a thing they call it the graveyard, a box where they only put everything that didn't sell in that box. So I was waiting for it to hit that box, then I can offer them a price and see what they take it.
Sure.
Yeah, I offered them $65. They said, "Oh, we'll take it." Da 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 da, and then I got it for $65. When I went looking online. A decent graded version of that book goes for $300-$400. So I got pretty much.
Brings me back to what I was trying to say before. Yeah. The one thing that will never change in comics.
Right.
And it's not just comics. I think it's a lot. It's just retail sales.
Right.
One thing that will never change are consumers that want a great deal.
Right.
So like these auctions are great. Because for the buyers, they're great for the buyers because they want great deals.
And then it gets the seller's name out there. Like let's just say it gets Torpedo known for their live sales now, because hey, you can offer them any price. They can say no, but you can offer. They'll make a deal with you.
And the thing about these comic book stores too is they buy collections off of customers. They
all the time. All the time. Yeah.
And they buy them for dirt cheap.
Yeah.
So even if they're the sale price that they have going for the book.
It's not what they got. It's not what they got the box for.
Exactly. So I mean, the weird thing is the speculation market continues to keep growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
Right. You have a percentage of readers now that are like, you know what? I'm done with single issues. I'm only going to get graphic novels.
Right.
Then you have other readers that are like, you know what? I don't like all these books piling up in my house or my apartment.
Right, right.
I want the space. So they're shifting over to the digital, right? There's a small percentage of people doing that.
Right.
So,
then after that, after those two, there's the speculator one, where they only speculate. Right. They only pick it up for speculation.
That's the
but a lot of people don't know is a lot of the books can be speculated. A lot of them could take over 10 to 15 years before it can even. That's just giving you a long-term, some of these are long-term investments. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So here's the thing about speculators, right? There's kind of like two types of speculators. You have speculators that will buy modern books. They'll buy new books.
Right.
Because
the one that just watched the movie and downloaded Key Collector or could watch Comic Tom.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing too, right? Like, and then again, that splits into two different types of speculators because you have speculators that like to collect, right?
Right.
They want it for their own personal collection.
Right.
And then you have speculators like they don't care about comic books.
Right.
They're just buying comic books.
See, this is the thing. I wish I would on this show, like since what we're talking about, I wish we had another perspective, like a female's perspective of this, another, and a new collector's perspective or a speculator's perspective. This is one of the reasons why I wanted a different panel of people
you don't really need.
No, I just want to see what their point of view is. You know what I mean? I want to see what their thinking is of it.
Some of the people that you mentioned, their point of view is very simple. Mm-hmm. They're very money. That's their motivation. Why are you doing this? Oh, do you read the comic books? No, I don't read the comic books. Why are you buying the comic books? Oh, because I can buy it cheap, flip it, and make a profit.
What? Or like you were saying, like some of the cosplayers, they like the costume, they like to build it, but they don't know anything about the character.
But cosplay is a whole nother world.
We can start that one next week. We can go down that rabbit hole next week.
I don't know. I honestly, I just don't get me wrong. I like some of my friends are cosplayers, and I like cosplayers overall.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like the big turnoff for me is.
But you remember when we were younger and when we went to cons, cosplay was frowned upon. You remember that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things were frowned upon back then. Everything is more ever since social media. I think a lot more things have become more acceptable because of social media.
Right.
But before social media, it started to become more acceptable just because of the internet. Because the internet brought people together who had a lot of the same passions, a lot of the same hobbies. And when you surround yourself with people who support you, it's more accepting. So but anyways, one of the things that always kind of just bugs me about cosplayers is that some of the cosplayers that I've talked with, they're just like regular people. They're regular people. They have regular jobs. Sometimes they're struggling financially. Sometimes they don't have money.
Right. But they spend over a couple of $100 in building a cosplay.
Because cosplay is
it's more expensive than comics. It's their hobby. Our hobby is collecting comics. Their hobby is creating costumes.
Right. I think one of the things that just bugs me though is that they'll say that they're a fan of a character.
Right.
But then like you're not willing to buy like $4 or $5. You're not willing to spend $4 or $5 for a comic book once a month.
Yeah, or read it digitally, or do something
for a character that you love, for a character that you like. So it's like,
I love Storm. I don't know nothing about her though.
Right. So you don't read any X-Men comic
books. Or the funniest one would be, I love Vampirella, but I don't know nothing about her either.
I sometimes think that when people do cosplay, it's not so much that they like the character. Mm-hmm. It's more like they just want to be part of the community.
See,
so they want to be part of the other people that dress up.
Right. I understand that too. So, but my thing is, but the big part is my thing is we can't make it where we're not accepting of others that are new to the community, like to the comic community. Hey, now make them feel like, I don't know enough. I don't know enough about this character. That's not what we're saying. We're saying it's disappointing that some people that love dressing up as the character or love love the saying they love the character, but I don't know nothing about her. That's
Right.
yeah.
You know, again, like I think just some of those people.
Just say
they're-
you like the character, but you don't love the character. You know what I mean? You like.
One of the things I do like about the cosplayers and cosplay community is when they do charities, when they're helping people, when they visit sick kids, when they do stuff like that. You know, like that. You know, that makes me feel great. Like I really appreciate that they do that.
Yeah, like that. The kid's gonna be talking about that for a week. Oh, hey, Captain America came to see me. Batman came to see me, or something like that.
You know, to make a kid smile and happy, especially if they're in the hospital and they're suffering. That's a very nice thing to do. You know, and that's something to be commended for. You know.
Right.
But at the same time, you have those other people that, you know, we live in such a
me.
Right. And we live in such a very narcissistic world now, especially if and that's one thing that social media has helped with.
Yeah.
You know, like,
narcissism.
You have a lot of people that they want the attention, they want either fame, they want, you know, they just
I really don't give a crap about. Look, I'm doing this because I'm having fun. I met some cool people.
Yeah.
The plus part is getting my name out there, but that's just a plus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just meeting all these new people.
I feel like I'm the type of person, like, I would cosplay, but I don't think I would want to hang out with cosplayers. You know what I mean? Because that's just not the kind of community that I really want to.
And then plus, I hear from other cosplayers that I know that they're really that community is really cutthroat. You know what I mean? That's what I hear. Certain.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because when you find out what their real intentions are,
yeah.
Because everybody that's cosplaying, not everybody has good intentions of being part of that hobby. You know.
Right.
You know, so it varies from person to person, community to community.
Right.
It's almost like gang members, right? Like, you know, we're part of this cosplay group, you know, gang, you know. And then when you have someone trying to enter the gang, you might have a couple members of the gang that are like, no, this guy, this is my turf. You know, what are you doing?
Right.
You know, like unless you're like friends with him and you get along with them.
Yeah, but like you were saying, like it's a group of cosplay girls. Yeah, and that one guy, you know what I mean? It's
you know, and sometimes you have guys that are doing cosplaying because they want to get with the girls that are cosplaying, you know.
Right, and they think it's easy. Oh, hey, I'm gonna spend this money to make this costume. Make this costume. Maybe I can pick up a girl or something like that.
It's all about for some people. I'm not saying a lot of cosplayers do this.
Yeah.
I'm just saying some. You know, but
like you were saying, I mean, there's a lot of guys that cosplay. The only a lot of their intentions are not just not to just cosplay. Their intention is to cosplay to actually meet girls, actually try to hook up with the girls. Absolutely. You know what I mean? It's not. You know,
like,
what I mean?
I wonder how many of these people who've been part of these cosplay groups that are no longer part of the cosplay groups, you know, and then, you know, they stop and you know. A lot of times it's like, you know, Dragon Con's a great example. Like a lot of people, they go there to party. They go there, you know, some of them go there to hook up, party, have a good time. You know, so it's all about, you know, again, it's the whole narcissistic like lifestyle.
Yeah, right.
I want more good cosplayers. I want more people that want to go to like hospitals and help kids and you know.
But my other thing is I want more cosplayers to actually know who they're cosplaying and a little bit of their history at least.
Yeah, you know I mean, like I said, and this is just my personal opinion. Again, the cosplay community.
Yeah, there's good and there's bad cosplayers. We're not saying all cosplayers are bad. We're saying there's some good ones, some bad ones. Like in the comic community, there's some good community members and some bad ones. Yeah, you know what I mean. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. And again, like it's a whole new world.
Yeah,
whole new world. You know.
Because previously cosplay wasn't as huge. You remember cosplay when me and you were younger. Cosplay wasn't as big. There was only it was only like probably like this, a handful. Now there's everybody and their mom wants to cosplay now.
Yeah, I want to say like one of the groups that probably helped cosplay really blow up was the 501st Legion, the Stormtroopers.
Yep.
You know, when they got organized, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they started like finding other people that wanted to join their cause and join, you know, the first, and they started creating, you know, groups all through the states.
Yeah, subsets. The second one, Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters. Yep.
Ghostbusters. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. you know. And then I mean, conventions also is just again like
They
you know,
grew
yeah,
because when we were younger, conventions weren't as big, and the only big one was San Diego, but
and then you would
and
have
MegaCon here.
you would sometimes have some cosplayers. They see another person who's dressing up, and
Yeah,
then what they do is they start approaching one another and start talking, becoming friends.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then they start saying like, "Hey, we should all hang out." You know, they started creating their own groups, their own
yeah,
community.
yeah,
You know, and of course, I've heard all kinds of drama stories. You know,
yeah. Me too.
you know what's funny is I feel like cosplayers have more drama than comic book collectors do.
Well, comic book YouTubers are something different. That's a whole different boat there.
Yeah, that's yeah. I don't keep up with that.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's a whole different boat there, man. I'm not even gonna get into that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, but anyways, like again, you know, the type of cosplayers, like I appreciate the cosplayers that are you know more knowledgeable.
Giving. You like the ones that are more giving.
Cosplay as.
Yeah.
And I also really appreciate those that support the media.
Local charity, yeah,
like,
local charities, media, yeah.
Yeah, like so if you dress up as Green Lantern and you pick up a Green Lantern book, you know, you actually read the comics, you're a fan, you pick it up, you support it.
Yeah, you know, and you actually own his first appearance. No, but I'm just saying. But that would give us more respect for you because you actually like it.
Yeah, it always used to confuse me and boggle my mind when a cosplayer, I ask him, "Hey, do you read comics or do you pick up the comics?" Like, "Oh no, I don't really have the money. Like, I have to come up with $100 for this for." For
my helmet, for the costume, or I have to come up with 100 for the cape or something or another,
yeah,
you know.
And it's like you do know like a comic book's like only like $5, you know, $5 a month.
That's but that's the $100 is their whole month of you know of saving up for the piece.
Yeah, all I'm really hearing is that the person just doesn't
or they can get it digitally. It's a little cheaper digitally sometimes. Sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like,
if you're on Comixology, some of them are 99 cents. Some of them, not all of them.
Yeah. I just appreciate those cosplayers that you know go out of their way to support the medium that created the character.
Yep, put more effort into it.
Absolutely. You know, so it's like, I just have more respect for them. You know, the people who don't do it, it's like, you know, yeah, I mean, I get it. You know, it's your hobby. You like to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think they're bad people, but I'm just like, you know, support the, you know, like, can you imagine if, you know, publishers closed up because like, hey, we're not selling enough comic books.
Right.
You know, like think of all the thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of cosplayers out there. Each one of them could be buying one comic book a month, you know, and like how much that would help the comic book industry.
Yeah,
they don't realize it. So, anyways, I'm really hopeful with what DC has planned. I've heard a rumor that DC is actually considering doing self-distribution. So even though
that's gonna be kind of interesting to actually see that.
They used to do self-distribution back like in the 70s and 80s, I think.
Yeah, but that was back then before.
Right.
They went international. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, not only international before everything went digital and before they went big.
Yeah. Well, that was before like they decided to go through direct market. And like have, you know, basically they had the idea of like, you know, they were convinced like, hey, here's a third party company that's going to sell your product for you.
Yeah, but you never know. You might end up seeing them on Kickstarter and all this other stuff. If you see Dynamite already, so you never know. You know what I mean?
And you know what? They should do Kickstarter. Every publisher, in my opinion, should do
Kickstarter. You know what's funny is if they do a Kickstarter, they go, hey, you can buy your way into DC owning a little piece of DC.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like, you know, so many people go on Kickstarter because they see projects, they see stuff that they like, you know. A lot of those people, you know, that see Kickstarter stuff, you know, they're just like, you know, the audience is there. That's where you market it at, you know.
Yeah.
You know, people don't, you know, like, where do you find advertisements for comic books, right? Let's say you don't go to a comic book store. How do you know what comic book is getting ready to come out? You don't know.
No.
You don't know unless you're you know, following a YouTuber that's telling you what's coming out, You don't know unless you're following a Facebook page that's promoting it. So that's what I'm saying is like you have all these people now, people who go to Kickstarter. Kickstarter will like actually point out like, hey, new Kickstarter. Here's recommendations, or hey, check this out. Hey, check that out. People will go onto the website of Kickstarter. They will peruse and they will see. They'll type in comics and they'll scroll through and they'll see all the new Kickstarters involving comic books. And then the cool thing too is like you have a lot of these people who are promoting, on social media. They're promoting through social media, so now they're like and they're directing them. They're telling them go to Kickstarter, or here's the link to my Kickstarter. Support, do this, do that, And so I think DC, or not even just DC, Marvel, any publisher that decides to go through Kickstarter, look at Todd McFarlane. Right. The Mr. Spawn here, Mr. 90s Comics. He goes and he does a Kickstarter, know? And,
Brian Pulido, all these guys from the 90s still are doing them, man.
And you know what? I think because of the success that Brian Pulido's had, it's proven to other creators that are like, wow, look at the success this guy has.
Right.
And he's doing it all on his own. So like a lot of these people are like, okay, you need the audience, you need the people, right? And then they all go to one place, they all put in their money. And they're essentially what they're doing is they're prepaying for the item before it even comes out,
Yep. They're pretty much pre-ordering a book. That's all they're doing. It's just it hasn't gone to print yet. They're just pre-ordering for it to go to print.
Exactly.
Yep. That's what Kickstarter is. It's pre-ordering. Yep. It's just a high-class version of pre-ordering a copy.
Absolutely. Like I said, if I were a publisher, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be putting the book out. I'd be putting it on a Kickstarter. If I already have the money to print out the books and have the books made, then when I do the Kickstarter,
certain editions should be printed.
No. What's the things that when you unlock?
Stretch goals. Yeah.
There you go. That would be the whole reason of doing Kickstarter is just to create stretch goals. Yeah. So you have like these little add-on items that people, that support the Kickstarter. They can get those items.
Yeah. Like a pencil, like a bookmark, like all kinds of
Getting your name in the book. That's thank you contribution.
I wouldn't mind doing. I wouldn't mind getting that. Like if you put a $5 tier in, hey, thank you for supporting this book.
I've thought about doing a Kickstarter to reopen a physical location like a comic book store.
Right.
I thought about doing a Kickstarter, and one of the things I thought about considering is those who donate a certain amount, their
little piece of the store.
No. But like their names will be on the walls on the store.
Right.
So it's like, so when they, it's like, so if they ever come in and they see their name on the wall, they're like, hey, I was one of the people that helped contributed to get this store made. Right. Here's my name right there. That's just an example.
Right.
There's a lot of neat ideas. There's a lot of stuff that that I'd like to do.
Right.
If I did do a Kickstarter, the goal would be it would be an insane goal. The insane goal would be to come up with like $500,000 or $1 million because I would use that money to buy the building.
Right.
So I would have to figure it all out. I'd have to figure out what building, and then two, I'd have to figure out how much they're selling it for. So how much loan that I need.
Right.
Anytime you get a loan through a bank, you need to put down a certain amount of money.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So like for example, we'll say 20%. Right. So like if you're going to buy a building, you have to put down 20% of what the building is worth. So let's say the building is $1 million.
Right.
What's 20% of $1 million? What is that? $20 million, right? No, not 20 million. 20,000, right?
Yeah, 20,000. I think. Yeah, something like that.
Or is it 200,000? It's 200,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, because 10% of 1 million is 100,000. So yeah. So if I were to buy a building that's worth $1 million, I would need at least $200,000 to put down to get the loan. And then it would probably be like a 30-year loan on paying off like an $800,000 building.
Right.
So there's a lot of factors, a lot of stuff involved. But I mean, like, anyways, that would be my goal. My goal would be to purchase a building. Or if I'm really lucky, I purchase land, and I get with the contractor, and I have them make the building.
Right.
Because sometimes making the building could be cheaper than buying the building.
Right.
Because the building is already established.
Right.
You pay a contractor might say,
Right.
we'll cut some corners here, like not on making the building, but like on saving you some money or whatever.
Right. Oh yeah, we cut some corners here, and then you end up with a 14-inch wall somehow.
I end up with a building that has no working air conditioning or something like that. Yeah.
Or you end up with a working air conditioning, but half of a wall or half of a building.
Yeah. But I mean, there's all kinds of neat ideas. I'm thinking big. I'm thinking big picture.
Right.
And so my goal in the next 2 to 3 years is looking for ways to make supplemental income, make some income on the side, save up that money, invest the money, let the money grow, and then bam, go big. Go big and like open like one of the best comic book stores in the United States. That would be the goal. Yeah,
but if you're gonna do that, you're gonna have to, like, a lot of people don't want to do the card thing, but you're gonna have to, invite all those type of people, because those are people anyways. But like tabletop games and stuff like that, you're gonna have to have that stuff in there. You can go old school style and have it just a comic shop, but that's not gonna. You're trying to keep profit coming in. You're not trying to.
Unfortunately, the only way a comic book store could stand.
The only way that, like you were saying, the only way it can stand on its own if they have other revenues, not just comic books.
No, I was going to say the only way that they can stand on their own is if they offered 0 discounts.
Right.
So if they offer 0 discounts and people are going in there and they're paying full price for the product, then you have a large profit margin.
Right.
So if you're buying,
Coliseum Coliseum does do that, because Coliseum uses the punch card style. Technically, yeah. Because if they actually do that, so they use the punch card style.
Yep. What they do is they get all the money up front, and then they hook you up with a deal.
Yeah, after you come back 10 times, then we'll hook you up with a 10.
It's not even coming back 10 times. It's you have to spend $100. Spend $100, you get 10% off. Now I believe they also have it set up to where if you have a subscription, it's every $100 that you spend, you get $15.
Rob Worst, my boy Rob's here. Rob Worst, what's up, Rob?
Hey, I just noticed the link that you sent. I opened it up and just saw you've been going for the last hour. I'm sorry.
You're
welcome.
You're good. We were just talking about like just the comic book, like in general, like collecting in general and stuff like that. So nothing much.
Oh, yeah. All the ups and downs and the struggles and the stuff that we think is hurting the industry and the stuff that we think would help the industry and stuff like that.
If I could probably say one thing more than anything else, pretend you're like a child. Pretend like you're 7 years old again, the first time you're at a buffet, and you get wide eyes and go, I want it all. And it sounds like a good idea until one day you kind of have most of it all, and you go, if I keep buying at the level that I do, I'm going to run out of room.
You got to buy a second house.
Become more selective.
Yeah. My goal is always to buy a second house and then just call it the comic book house.
You're still gonna run out of room because the way we collect.
Of course, but I mean, for the time being, like there was I used to work for CBCS Comics, the grading company, and the original owners of the company, they like live in Texas, and they were like, the husband, the guy who owned it. One of the co-owners, he bought a lot of books, right? He had a big time collector, got almost every book that he was buying, getting it graded from the CGC. I mean, this guy was like a multimillionaire, and he literally had a second house, and the house was just stacked with graded books. The whole house, this whole big house that he had. I heard there was a rumor that he had so many books in the house that the foundation actually was kind of like breaking, and that he had to get it repaired because he had too much weight and too much stuff inside the house.
That would be that you would have to have a lot of slabs just to do that.
Yes,
I would think.
That's another thing to tell people out there at home. I don't know how many people are watching, nor does it matter. Because in the future, this is something to think about. If you have, like, just one of these things here can hold 25 boxes. Let's say each one is about maybe 80 pounds. I wind up putting two backing boards behind every book, sometimes 3 if it's a more expensive one. That's a lot of weight. If you're on a second story, third story, whatever it is, depending on the construction and how old it is, just think about NASA and sending people into space where it kind of blows apart because, they go to the cheapest dollar. Same thing on labor costs on your home. Right. Like putting all these in my home, it could collapse into the floor underneath. Yes, it's happened.
If I ever got to that level, though, what I would personally like to do is I would like to open a museum, right? Mm-hmm. And so it'd be like a comic book museum, and then next to the museum would be sort of like the gift shop / comic book store. And so I could have like a lot of the books that I own on display, so like people can come in and they can see like, oh wow, first appearance of Superman, Action Comics, or first Batman, or this or that, and it'd just be like fun. Like there's some nice statues, nice displays. You can have someone that like a comic historian, maybe work part-time or whatever, and kind of do like a tour and tell people about the history of comics and tell them
that would be Tim on our end. That would be Tim.
No, we talking about Tim. Tim won't even quit. Tim won't even quit the stores he works for. He won't have time to work at a comic book museum.
All right. So when I was young, there was a TV show called Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And most people would idolize, I don't know, Buffy, maybe even, God help me, Angel or Spike or Xander. Who was the person I was looking up to? Mother effing Giles. Why?
Of course.
Because he had a giant library. So I was looking at comics because I saw somebody when I was much younger that had a collection similar to this, but it was only maybe a third the size. And I'm like, I want to be like that. And then I see Giles and I go, I want to be like that, but with comic books. And then I see other people doing that, and I'm like, this is something I never knew I always wanted.
Yeah. That's actually another good idea too, because I mean, like, since so many comic books are being put into graphic novels, that could be another section, right? Another section of a museum where it is kind of a library where you have all these graphic novels lined up. I would almost want it to be very similar to, like, I'm sure you've seen the original Christopher Reeve Superman movie.
Oh yeah.
So like, remember when Lex Luthor is on his ladder and he's looking through all the books and he's telling Otis, send me over to N as a nincompoop, like put me over there in the N section, and start pulling out the graphic novels all in the alphabetical order. Like, that'd be kind of cool to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, make it double as a cafe so people could come there and read, and not just hang out for the Wi-Fi and smoke weed and coffee. And, we want the high-class reader.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, your collection looks awesome, man. I love this setup.
Yes, almost every key that you could think of, pretty much. Oh. Almost.
There's plenty that I don't have. I don't have any of the first issues from the 1960s, early 60s era of Marvel. I don't have Superman 1. I mean, the lowest Superman I have is a shit tier condition 7 where the spine's breaking off, but at least it's signed by Joe Shuster.
That's cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What's funny is, like, I think Jerry Siegel put out more signatures than Shuster, so Shuster is actually a harder signature to find. One time I was at CBCS and somebody submitted a Superman comic, and I think they didn't know that Shuster, because back in the day when they signed comics, they didn't sign them on the covers; they would always sign it on like the first page. So like when they were like grading the book, they opened it up and they saw Shuster's name on the first page. So they had to notify him, let him know, like, hey, we found a Schuster signature. Do you want us to get this verified? So they put it through the system because they had like a record of all the different signatures. And so if the signatures matched up, then they'd be like, yep, it's an authentic, verified Joe Shuster signature.
I mean, as you can see, I don't have a single graded book, but if I was going to do just one, just
Yeah.
one, that would be the one.
That would be the one. Oh yeah, if you're going to do it, I would recommend CBCS, just because CGC they won't even authorize, they won't even authenticate that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love how they put it, writing on cover or writing
yeah.
on interior.
Yeah.
They put the writing in quotation marks.
Yeah, that's what makes you laugh. It's like it's the real signature, but you're gonna go, yeah, it's so
Because they can't verify it, they have to put it in quotation marks.
Yeah.
You know, because they don't have the ability to verify it. But now that CBCS is owned by Beckett Media, Beckett has their own system as well too. So they just go through their system to verify the signatures.
You know, I think my single favorite, and you all know what I'm going to be talking about now, my single favorite writing on cover book, it looks like it would probably be maybe a 6.570, maybe 7.5 if I'm being conservative or liberal, whatever. It's the Angry Ex-Girlfriend copy of Amazing Spider-Man number 14 that's now a 1.8 with writing on the cover.
Oh, yeah.
And what was it?
The Revenge copy.
Amateur Restoration.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I wonder if we'll ever see another comic book like that, like, happen again, you know? Like, that'd be crazy.
Never know.
I'm sure they exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one comic book I love the most right now that I have in my collection, and I'm so thankful.
I can tell you, Superman 123.
No, close. No, it's my Amazing Spider-Man 50.
Oh yeah.
I got it signed by Stan Lee, and one of the inspiration behind it. Here's a funny story. Years ago, Stan was doing one of the signings here in Orlando. I was broke. I had no money. I just went to the convention just to hang out and have a good time with some friends and look around and check out some panels. Well, a buddy of mine asked me, he was like, hey, man, if you were to get any comic book signed by Stan Lee, what would it be? And I told him, of course, you have your obvious books, but we can't afford those. So I said the one that would probably be the most attainable, that I would definitely want to get signed, would be Amazing Spider-Man 50. And he looked at me, he's like, oh, okay, cool. 2 hours later, he comes walking up to me. He's like, hey, look what I got. He's like, I'm going to go get this signed by Stan Lee. And I was like, you stole my idea, man. And he's just like, how do you know that I didn't have the same idea? You never said anything. You asked me what I would get, and then you go and you do the same thing. So I did one-up him, though. I got a better copy. I ended up buying a CGC graded copy that was like, I think, an 8.0. But I mean, after taking a close look at it, I'm like, if it gets regraded again, chances are it'll probably be like 7.5. But I got at least a better condition of that book. Of course, he was like joking with me. He's like, yeah, but I got mine signed first. And I was just like, but
I would have said I got mine slabbed first.
Actually, no, I don't think he slabbed his, and I haven't slabbed mine either. I keep it because I still want to get more signatures added onto it. Like I would love to get John Romita Sr. to sign it. If by some miracle I get to see him at a convention and have the money. Right. I should have the money because I already have the book. But anyways, like, so I eventually got my copy signed. But the cool thing I added onto the signature was, so anyways, like, you know, they would always do the documentaries of Stan Lee, and they would always, like, you know, show off covers, books that he worked on. And one of the ones that I always spotted was they always kept showing the cover of Amazing Spider-Man 50 because it's when Spider-Man quits.
Right.
And plus it's the first appearance of Kingpin. So it's one of those monumental, you know, key issues. And so I thought to myself, you know, how cool would it be to have that book, have it signed, and then down the road when I have kids, and my kids are watching those documentaries about Stan Lee, and they see that cover, I get to turn to my kid and say, hey, I have that cover, and it's signed by Stan Lee. So, like, that's a moment I'm looking forward to farther down into the future, but, you know, maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 years if I'm lucky. But the other thing I added on there is I still think Sam Raimi is the best Spider-Man director. I still think Spider-Man 2 is still the best Spider-Man film made. You can tell Sam Raimi was just like, He nailed the character. I mean, the only thing missing, of course, that fans would complain about is the humor, because Sam has a different type of humor. But other than that, I feel like he nailed the spot. Like the whole Peter Parker syndrome, where Peter just can't catch a break. Like that is the essence of who Peter is. Here's a guy who's just trying to do good in his life, trying to do well, try to be nice and help people, and bad things just keep happening to him. Like one after another after another. And Sam captured it beautifully in Spider-Man 2. And so I was very fortunate enough that last year, Sam Raimi was doing one of the small. Well, I wouldn't say small. It's considered a big horror convention.
Yeah, Spooky Empire.
Yeah. So he was here, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Sam Raimi, the director of one of my all-time favorite comic book films, is here to do a signature. So thankfully, I had enough money, and I was able to get a picture with him. And I pulled my Amazing Spider-Man 50, and I had him sign, I think, right underneath where Stan signed. And I just looked at him and I said, "Hey, man, you're still the best Spider-Man director. I love everything that he does, and I appreciate him." And he was so kind. He was very nice, very humble, and so that's cool. That's my most prized possession, is the Amazing Spider-Man 50 signed by Sam and Stan. And then I have a Superman book signed by Stan. So.
Why do you got a Superman book signed by Stan?
Well, technically it's a DC Comics Presents book. Okay. And the cool thing is, Stan Lee wrote it.
Okay. So that makes sense.
Yeah, he wrote in the story along with Darwyn Cooke.
Okay.
And I remember meeting Darwyn Cooke years before he had passed, and I had that book with me, and I had him sign it, and he kind of opened up and told me like a little story. And he's like, he looked at the book and he's like, "Oh, that's a gem," and so as he's like signing it and we're talking, he's like, the sad thing is, the funny thing is that Stan still just. Every time I see Stan doesn't remember who I am, even though we worked together on this book, And I told him, well, I joked with Darwyn. I was like, "Oh, you know how Stan is. He's getting old. He's just probably walking everywhere saying Excelsior. And he started laughing. He was like, "Yeah, probably, pretty much, yeah." But the sad thing is that I had that DC Comics Presents #1. I had one signed by Darwyn Cooke, and by the time I went to go get Stan to sign it, I couldn't find the copy that Darwyn Cooke had signed. So I went ahead and bought another copy, and I had Stan sign it. So I have 2 copies of DC Comics Presents #1, one signed by Darwyn Cooke, and then the other one signed by Stan. My favorite thing about that book is that I remember Stan doing the Stan Lee Presents, like his version of Superman, his version of the DC characters. I remember that was huge back in, I want to say it was like the late 90s, early 2000s when he did it. Because everyone was like, "Oh, well, Stan's Marvel," so like it's the first time Stan's writing anything for DC. Right. So he did all these stories, right? But the DC Comics Presents is probably the only Stan Lee actual DC Comics Superman story written by him that I know of. And me being a huge Superman fan, I was just like, this was like a must, signed by Stan. And I can't think of how many. I honestly don't know how many of those copies are even out there that people had the same idea and they got the book signed as well. So I probably have one of the few copies of DC Comics Presents #1 written by Stan Lee, signed by Stan Lee. So.
Or you're one of the ones that only knew about it, and a lot of people know that he wrote it.
True, it's true. Like I had a buddy of mine who got a Batman black cover or whatever, like one of the New 52 Greg Capullo, Scott Snyder Batman books, and he had Stan sign it. And here's a funny story on that. He had Greg Capullo sign the book. Mm-hmm. So when he gave it to Stan to sign it, because I asked him, like, "Why would you do it?" And he's like, "Well, how many DC books are signed by Stan Lee?" I'm like, fair point, fair enough. And it was just a random DC book that he wanted Stan to sign, just to have his signature on it. But the funniest part was Stan signed his signature over Greg Capullo's signature. And so he took a picture of it and he put it on Twitter, and Greg Capullo responded. And he's like, "You know what I'm going to do?" He's like, "The next book I see with Stan Lee's signature on it, I'm going to sign over his name with my name." Obviously, it was just a joke, but still, it's just so funny. Like, why, Stan? Come on. I know his vision was like really getting bad at the end, but
he goes,
I actually
He
want to
found it
draw
funny.
Yeah. He probably found it funny. He goes, I'm gonna get a good laugh out of it. I bet you he will too.
Stan's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
He probably
So
looked at
how
the
old did he
Batman.
really live to? What age did he pass at? 70 or
Ni-
90?
96 or something.
Yeah, I
like
think
that,
I want
right?
to say 97. I want to say 97 because I was like, Stan was so close to 100, and I was so convinced that he was going to make it to 100.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
every
so
movie, I thought the next one was going to be where we'd see Rest in Peace, Stan Lee. And I always thought the next movie that comes out, that might be the
Right.
one. That might be the one. And it turned out to be Captain Frickin' Marvel.
Yeah.
But you think that all of us here are very original going, we're going to get him to sign a DC comic. He'll go, oh, this is the third time this week. Here you go.
Right.
Okay, thanks. It's like, you signed a DC. I'm like, it's every week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably just like that episode of Big Bang Theory where Sheldon's like, you probably think that you show up at my door. That must mean come on in and watch the game with me.
All right.
Oh, okay.
And he just like walks right in. I love, one of the things I did love about Big Bang Theory was getting to see like all these legendary like people within comics and film, or at least tied into like the comic book genre, making appearances. You know, like Adam West or Leonard Nimoy. Even though technically Leonard Nimoy only was a voice, I don't think he appeared in person. But it was always cool, and like when Stan shows up or when Kevin Smith shows up, you know, like when you see these kind of guys, like you're just like awesome, you know, like, you know, that was one of the things I really loved about Big Bang Theory, you know, and it's so funny. Like they're like comic book fans and other people that like hated Big Bang Theory, and I think they hated it because they didn't like the way they made comic book fans look, you know.
They made us kind of look like silly children, and to an extent we are.
Yeah.
But we can thank them for the fact that it came out and was airing in and around the same time that the first Iron Man came out, which helped establish nerd culture to be mainstream. Because before this, in the 1980s, we were beaten up for reading comic books. We'd have to hide that shit.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. And then also on top of that, you would see them visit a comic book store.
Oh, yeah.
So it made people who watched the show want to go visit a comic book store. I remember I worked at a store in Brandon years ago, and there was these, you know, a few people that came in. They were visiting the country. They were not from the U.S. I think they were from South America, maybe Venezuela, and they hardly spoke any English, but they knew Big Bang Theory. They were like, Big Bang Theory, you know, and like comic book store. Like, yeah. I was like, you got it, welcome, you know. And so it's just one of those, like, they loved it for the experience, and then they got the idea of doing that from that show. So like I would wish that they would make more TV shows or sitcoms. I wish that they would do more of that involving the comic book culture, you know, like why not have a sitcom where you have a group of friends and one of the friends is a comic book store owner, and then maybe the girl that he has a crush on is a cosplayer. I don't know. These are just ideas that I'm having, you know. Like,
the closest we got was back in 1990, I believe, maybe 91, the movie True Romance, written by frickin' Quentin Tarantino, where at the very beginning of the movie, you have you don't know she's an escort yet, but she's falling in love. Hey, do you want to see Spider-Man #1? And he goes back to a comic book store. And they don't make him out to be like this total nerd idiot boy.
Right.
No, this guy's really had come up by the end of the movie. And he, comic book nerd and total chill-ass dude.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, Christian Slater at that time was, like, super cool, you know? So, like, how great is it to have an actor who is super cool playing as a comic book fan? And basically showing to the audience that, like, hey, you know, you know, like, because you have, like, The Simpsons is another prime example. Here's a show that's from the 80s all the way till now. You have the quintessential comic book guy, you know, like, you know, worst intro ever, you know, like, this guy's, like, so, like, critical, and, you know, and that's the thing is, like, they think that that's how some comic book people are, or comic book business are, which it's only partially true. Like it's only a small percentage of people that are like that in real life, but for the most part,
that was my actual former comic store owner. He was literally that guy. And it was sad to see that the stereotype was real, and it does exist. And you don't want to perpetuate stereotypes like Revenge of the Nerds. Like, not all nerds are like Revenge of the Nerds. That's just hyperbole. But then there's other ones that actually normalize it and say, hey, there's normal people that are like this. They're not just social rejects.
Yeah. It's
called autism.
Yeah. And it's like, I'll talk to like some of the people that I went to school with, like some of the girls that I knew from school, and they'll be like, oh, my husband loves this, or he collects this, or he collects that, and you can see like how they're, because they love their husband, they fall in love with his hobbies, and vice versa. Like, they support one another and they support each other's hobbies, so it's always nice to see that kind of positivity amongst, people who back in the day had nothing to do with it or weren't interested in it at all.
Right.
So like, it's funny. There was this girl that I knew in school, and we used to talk, and she loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I loved the show. Dark Horse had started just coming out with some of the comics, and these were the ones obviously not written by Joss Whedon. But I told her, hey, there was like a 3-issue miniseries where they kind of like recreated the first film, the one with Christy Swanson, and they integrated that story into the television series. So that first 3-issue miniseries, I kind of bought that and I gave it to her. And then like later on, she started dating a guy, and she's like, oh, you'll love him. He's great. He's just like you, or whatever, or he's into the same things that you're in. So I was like, okay, cool. And me and him are still friends to this day. He still buys comic books, and he's into action figures and stuff like that. And we talk about it from time to time. We talk about TV shows also. But it's just so funny how like before she met him, I was the guy that was kind of introducing her into that kind of medium. And then when she started dating this guy, he was already into it. So it was almost like easier for her to accept it, I guess. I don't know. Like, I don't know, maybe I would practice, and then, he was the Super Bowl or whatever, but for the most part, like, yeah, it's interesting, like, just getting people into it and then, finding common interest, making it normal. Because, I mean, back then, like, I had another buddy of mine in school. We weren't friends in school. We became friends outside of school. He didn't know that I was into comic books. As soon as he found out, he was like, hey, dude, I'm into comic books too. I'm like, that's awesome. What are you picking up? What are you reading? And now he and I are really good friends. He actually buys comic books for me. So it's like, it's always neat, like, thinking back, growing up at a different time, and then like seeing how things are now, it's like, You
like this. So I have a friend of mine, Rufo. He's another court reporter. So when I get something really big, he doesn't get a chance to drive all the way down to way South Miami where I live. So he knows what the first appearances are, but he hasn't really bought books because he's married. He has kids. He's in his late 30s.
He's on a budget.
Well, no kids, and I don't have to worry about that as much. So I wound up through a long period of time organizing this purchase, where I went to a really bad neighborhood to get this. Super nice condition. I bring it to the Dade County Courthouse, and I have this packaged in a Gemini. It's inside my little roller carrier bag, and I pull it out and I'm showing it to Rufo. I'm like, hey, see, look what I finally got. And we're all looking at it with pride. And 2 guys come right up to me. This one guy in his 60s, the other guy probably maybe 50, maybe late 40s or so. And the older guy goes, I'll give you $1,000 for that. I'm like, I'm sorry, I paid a lot more than that for this.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll give you 2. I'm like,
let me think about it.
Right now, my favorite thing is whenever I do one of these court cases, depositions, whatever.
Oh yeah, you told me, Rob, when you're on camera.
It's like if you guys have never seen me before and you hit the on screen and it's like this. Doo-doo.
Yeah.
They pull out like a magnifying glass and like looking closer to the screen, like, is that what I think it is?
Yeah.
I've had judges do that.
That's funny.
A lot of them know who I am by now. They just know me
Yeah.
as the comic book court reporter. I don't even have a name. That's
Yeah.
what I always wanted. Not having a title like that. Not being remembered by my name, because when you put on a suit, no one remembers what you look like. So the guy that committed the crime and murdered all those people, what did he look like? Well, he was wearing a suit. Well, can you give us anything else? Was he white? Was he black? Was he tall? Well, I think the suit was gray. Okay. I like just blending in so I can just get through the day where no one bothers me.
Yeah. You're living the life, living the dream, man.
Mm-hmm.
There's the comic court reporter. What's his name? Thank you for not remembering who I am or where I am. Hey, can I come look at that? No, bye, gotta go.
Yeah.
It's almost the opposite of Tim. Like, everybody knows who Tim is.
Yeah.
They just don't know where he lives.
Yeah. And he's not as set up as Rob is, though.
No.
But imagine if he was as set up as Rob was, and he had.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think just the way Tim stacks everything.
Yeah.
There's a chance that Tim has more books than you, Rob.
I'm sure there's people that have more. It's just I took a lot of time trying to curate it with the milers on the outside, the Velcro to keep it in place, the piece of Scotch tape that I'm always replacing because I kind of switch out the books because you don't want to have anything exposed to natural light for too long, even though there's no natural light coming in. And when I turn this last light off, it is pitch black in here.
Right.
I cycle things out, and I just like it looking nice, more or less like an art studio than just a room full of boxes.
Like I said, if Tim had the time, I think he would do the same thing Rob would be doing, like putting it all. Yeah.
It took about 6 months to put it together, looking like this. But before this, you can see pictures on my Instagram where I was homeless for a time, where I put everything into storage, took it all out. The boxes were ratty ass pieces of crap. I bought all new boxes. There were at least maybe 5,000 books that were not bagged or boarded. So I rebagged and boarded everything, every single last book. And I put them into CLZ in the first 3 weeks of the pandemic. First time I ever did that. So now I have an actual count of how many I have. I know that for once. So now I'm trying to make sure that I don't have it expand too much where I have to go, okay, well, I have a full run of Deadpool, but let's see, what can I get rid of? Well, all the subsequent runs of Deadpool are.
Yeah, I mean, the sad thing is, like, Tim has mentioned about opening up his own comic book store, and he's been collecting for like 30 years, so he definitely has a lot of key issues. I even told him, like, I'm confident he has enough in his collection that even if he sold 25% of his collection, that would be enough money to cover his whole business for a whole year. You know?
But he's just like Rob, that he doesn't want to get rid of it.
Doesn't want to get rid of it, man.
Nope.
He doesn't want to get rid
Until
of
the
it.
day comes, you have to, because there was a time in my life that it came to that point, and I had to. And like, if you've ever had a traumatic experience in your life, you know that you want to be prepared if something bad happens again. So as much as I like having a Werewolf by Night 32, if something really terrible happened, I would not hesitate for a second getting rid of it for probably less than even what I paid, because sometimes that's what needs to be done in adulting.
Yeah. My goal is to expand on my comic book business. What I really want to do is I want to make enough money to the point where I can purchase the building, where I own the building, and I want the building to be big enough that I can rent out half the space. so that way I can get like a business in there where I can keep collecting rent. And then, I have my half of the business where, or half of the size of the building where I can just use that to do the comic book business. I'm also considering, like, if that does well and it grows, then I reinvest the money. I get an even bigger building. I would love to own a small movie theater. And so it would be like a small movie theater, and then on the side of the movie theater, bar, and then on the other side of the movie theater,
laundromat.
But I mean, like, I want it to be like the hangout, right? I want people to be
so
able to know.
You want gang members to hang out around there to go watch a movie, then go get liquored up and kind of crash into the comic store and go, hey! Oh, look, he has Hulk 340. Can I handle that? Can I handle it? Oh, look, it's awesome. Oh, hey, look what I got. I bent it.
I'm actually going to save the community. I'm going to save the community because I'm going to take those gang members and I'm going to get them hooked on comics instead of drugs, right? And then they're going to be coming in here. They're going to be coming in here and they're going to be like, "Hey man, you got that new issue of Spider-Man?" Like, "Heck yeah, man! Stay off the streets, buddy. Keep up the good work." I
can attest to the fact that comics help me not drink.
Yeah.
All I need to do is go back and look at pictures of those boxes as they were coming out of storage going, well, I can either have this and, party and be drunk or stay sober and have that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have that.
Way better.
Yeah.
Comic books are so much better.
Yep.
I mean, I don't even go out drinking often. I do like to socialize with some friends and catch up. But for the most part, I spend most of my time home watching TV, watching movies, going through comic books. I used to play a lot of video games, and so now I kind of just play video games seasonally. Like I probably play video games for like a month or two and then get off it and then resume my normal activities. One hobby I need to start doing is exercising. I need to, get in shape.
That's all of us. That's not just you. That's all of us.
I need to turn into like Dwayne Johnson. I need to turn into like turn into
but
like.
You heard how he does it from that one movie with Kevin Hart. It's like, oh, I went from being a huge fat kid. How did I get to look like this? Well, after I left school, I started working out for 6 hours a day every day for the last 20 years.
Yeah. No, it's too much. It's too much. Yeah. No, I want to get his size. I just don't want to get like too ripped, because in order for you to get ripped like that, you do have to work out like 5-6 hours a day. And it's like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Putting nothing but chicken without seasoning, without the butter and the garlic. It's just chicken.
You ever see his cheat days? Because he has cheat days and he will eat like a whole thing of pizza, and then
not one pizza. It's more than one. Don't.
Oh yeah. His calorie intake is
crazy.
It's insane. It's insane. Like the way he eats. But I mean, he is a big guy though. He's a big guy, and he
needs that feel to burn, man. He needs all that stuff to burn it off.
Yeah. So honestly, I would honestly just be happy being in shape as Henry Cavill. I'm a big Superman. If I can get in shape like Man of Steel, then I'm like, okay, I'm good.
But we're all kind of getting a little older, and we might not be at the point where we're kind of looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger now, because after you get into that kind of awesome shape, when you get older, it just sags, because when you get old, everything sags.
Oh, yeah.
Great unifier for all humanity. Everything sags.
I will say this, though. I think a lot of the sagging that you see, it's because back in the day, a lot of these big guys, they took steroids. So if you naturally get big, I think instead of sagging, what happens is you just lose the muscle mass and you kind of just reform. You kind of like, not reform, like you reform to sort of like a normal human-sized body the older you get. But like guys who are like sagging and guys who are like really, really big, I think the reason they have all the sagging is because of the steroids that they took.
Well, I know that you would get some kind of sag just for the fact that you had this one guy down here living in South Beach. He went to Ultra, well, not to Ultra because that was canceled. So we have down here in South Beach Winter Music Festival for all the big techno stuff. I was always a big fan, and almost everything was canceled, but this guy wound up going to some of the parties that were still available. He got COVID. This guy was ripped. And they did a story in the New Times where it showed the picture of him all ripped, and then it showed the picture of him 3 months later after he's finally getting out of the hospital after being on a ventilator, and he just looks like Steve Rogers before he became Captain America. But it's sag. I mean, you can see that there was muscle, but it just looks limp.
Yeah, like almost like atrophy, almost.
That's the exact word to categorize it as, because if you don't work out for even a short period of time, you're injuring your muscles. So it just goes, oh, thank you for not injuring me anymore. I can finally relax.
Yeah.
Just look like melted wax.
Yeah.
He's just like using the flaps and then trying to fly, like one of those like flying squirrels.
Yeah, that's usually people's neck gizzards.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, earlier today I was watching Legends of the Fall. It was on in the background, and it's some young-ass Brad Pitt from, like, back when he was in his early 20s. And I remember watching just maybe a couple months ago the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He now looks like his own wax figure.
Oh, yeah.
And looking at all this, because I had somebody pass recently, we're all going to look like that. We're all going to look like melted wax figures.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I haven't seen that movie yet, but I've seen like the commercials for it. I do love Quentin Tarantino, and I was hoping it was on Amazon Prime to watch, but it's on Stars. So I'm just hoping I'm gonna wait and hopefully it gets on HBO Max and then finally watch it on there. Or if I have the money, I'll buy the movie because I do love Tarantino. I do want to watch it.
It's definitely worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't think that it's his best or anywhere close. It's a good movie, but I'll put it more in line with like Inglourious Bastards. It's revisionist history. As long as you're okay with that, you'll like the movie.
Oh yeah,
because
Well,
one scene, Brad Pitt takes on Bruce Lee, and if you're a Bruce Lee fan, you go, "What the?"
No, I know. I've heard many Bruce Lee fans not happy.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was cool because Bruce Lee was being a dick.
Right? Yeah.
In the context, okay, it worked.
Yeah, it worked for the movie, but in real life, people, especially people who like know Bruce Lee, they're like, no, that wasn't him. He was apparently he was always a very, very nice guy. Very, I want to say most of the time, kind of very reserved and quiet.
Oh, very. He was conservative. He was very quiet. He was humble.
Oh, yeah.
Soft-spoken, even. You can find old video, and it's very cool listening to him talk. Because
very smart, and very wise too. Like he was just like, he was a real thinker. He was a real thinker. Like he really looked at the way the world worked, and he was just like, this is the key. This is what's best. This is what I should do. This is what other people should do. So like I've seen some of those like inspirational videos where you see Bruce Lee talking, and it's always really neat. And I feel bad because to this day I still haven't watched Enter the Dragon.
It's worth it. I mean, when you set aside some time, because in these days, just trying to find enough time to watch one movie completely all the way through without taking a 5-minute break to answer the phone, answer a text, answer your email, get the dog, let the dog back in, answer the phone, or whatever the shit that's going on in your life, to go take a break, hour and a half, 2 hours.
Or addiction to smartphones. This is why I still love movie theaters, because if I go into a movie theater, I do shut off my phone. I shut off my phone. I sit there. I'm like, I paid $10 to $15 to watch this movie. One chance to see this movie. I'm going to
get my money's worth.
I'm going to get my money's worth. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to enjoy the film. And I'm going to give it all of my attention. When I'm at home, though, I'm like, I can pause this movie for like 5 minutes. Let me see what's going on.
You can watch it anytime. That's the problem.
Hey, what movie you're watching? Superman, Man of Tomorrow. How far in are you? 20 minutes. Didn't you start watching that movie 6 hours ago? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's completely changed. Like my goal one day would be to, when I get my own house, I would set up a nice big TV. I would set it up like a movie theater. That would be my goal. Get a nice reclining chair, have a big screen, have a nice sound system, put on the movie, take the phone, probably put it in my bedroom, and just leave it in the bedroom.
Mhm.
Sit there in a nice chair with a nice drink, and just watch the movie. Like that would be my goal to do at home. When I have my own house, I can't do it in my room because I just have too much stuff in my room, and I have my phone with me. It's just I'm too relaxed. I need to get a different type of relaxation. I need a different
Right.
surrounding. I need a different surrounding. I get so relaxed because most of the time I'm laying in my bed watching a movie, and then sometimes I'm too relaxed. I fall asleep during the movie.
Hey, Simon. Simon's in the chat.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah.
Getting relaxed, kind of like how Perry does. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I don't have the ball.
So what's the next book you got? You're excited for there, Jeff?
Next book, probably Vampirella next week. Yeah, I haven't looked at next.
You're such a big Vampirella fan. That's so surprising.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I'm excited for this book.
There's two good ones coming out soon. One is called Stillwater by Chip Zdarsky.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's his new ongoing, and the other one is Al Ewing. They only find them when they're dead.
Well, that one sounds good, actually. Yeah,
Is that
Al Ewing one.
you only find them when they're dead?
I know nothing about it other than the title.
Is that Image or is it Boom Studios?
I believe it's Boom.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like Boom. Boom's been putting out some great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I still need to read his was it Immortal Hulk? Everyone's been raving about how great that Hulk series has been.
I love Immortal Hulk. I loved his Ultimates and Ultimates Squared or 2 or whatever. But the Guardians of the Galaxy is hard to read.
Yeah.
But to be fair, so was Donny Cates's.
Yeah.
That's not an easy book to write, apparently.
Nope.
Well, who are the two writers that were working on Guardians of the Galaxy years ago that basically made them popular again?
So when they came back, that was Dan Abnett, and that was a result of the Annihilation series, of which I read none of.
Okay.
I've been wanting to get on it, but I have very little knowledge of that. And then it's followed up by Brian Michael Bendis, where it kind of got some of the ideas from the movie and kind of amalgamated it together. Finally got Groot to speak full sentences. They even made him Baby Groot, but they were tying it into every single event crossover that was happening every 3 months. So I can't tell anybody to read that series because it's a giant mess. And then we start to get into Donny Cates, and then into, Al Ewing.
Yeah,
and right now you have Moonstone with 2 separate personalities fighting over one another, and then they just merge. And if you know nothing about what's going on, you're like, "What? I am so lost." I love Moonstone. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Oh man, I used to be able to keep up with everything, and I remember, sometimes customers would come in and they'd be like, "Okay, I'm new to comics. What do you recommend?" And I would start them from one end of the wall and work them all the way down to the other end of the wall. And sometimes they just have that blank look on their face. They'd be like, because I literally, suggested like 20 different comic books to read, and I broke down stories and what's been happening in all the issues. And they're just looking at me like, what was that one you were talking about with that one character? I'm like, oh, this one? And like you walk all the way back onto the other end of the wall and pull it out. They're like, yeah, we'll take that one. It's like one of those, like I miss those days where I used to be able to read everything and then just be able to just like make recommendations. And I considered myself the hype man You know, like I hyped everything up. I was like, "Oh, you got to check this out! You know, this is awesome. This is great. You know, great
Yeah,
art."
I remember that.
Yeah,
You would hype you would hype everything, even the Superman that was hot garbage. You would hype it.
Well, I mean,
All
that's
right,
because
hype man, hype some hot garbage for me.
You know, here the problem nowadays for me is, and Jeff has heard this. You know, Tim's heard this. I'm not as much of a Marvel fan as I used to be. I feel like a lot of the stuff they're putting out now is just not as good quality as it was years ago. I feel like Marvel kind of like took a step down when Mark Millar left. When Mark Millar left and he started doing his own independent titles, because I loved like a lot of the Ultimate books back in the day. Like when Mark Millar did Ultimate X-Men, he did Ultimates. Bendis doing his Ultimate Spider-Man. Like those were some like really great stories. Spider-Man was good only because Bendis was consistent with it, along with Mark Bagley's art. But X-Men was cool because one, I love Adam Kubert. So when Adam Kubert was like doing the first like 2-3 story arcs of Ultimate X-Men, I just couldn't get enough of it. I was just like, oh, this is cool, this is neat. I didn't think it was going to last, but I was wrong. You know, like and I think one of the things people really liked about the Ultimate Universe was you didn't have 5-10 different X-Men titles. You didn't have 4. Exactly. You know, their continuity was self-contained. It was easy to do. You know, so like when they started doing Ultimate Fantastic Four, it wasn't until I think Jeff Loeb stepped in and he did Ultimates 3, that's when the whole Ultimate line started to make a shift. And then later on, I heard that because the Ultimate books were like the top-selling Marvel books. So I remember hearing a story that when what's his name, editor-in-chief Joe Quesada, when Joe Quesada was in the process of selling Marvel to Disney. I think before they were going to sell to Disney, they were basically saying, okay, we need to make some changes here at Marvel. And rumor was that the Ultimate books were doing really well, but the publishers were like, listen, Ultimate Marvel is great, but what we really need is we need the fans to write regular Marvel. You know, so I think they started to kind of self-sabotage the direction, the story, even promoting the books, even putting top talent on those books. It started to kind of dwindle, started to kind of like go down, and it was more focused on like that's when you saw Mark Millar working on Civil War, you know, and then after Civil War you had Secret Invasion, you know, like all these event books that Marvel started to do. They were really focusing more on the mainstream Marvel books. Bendis working on New Avengers, you know, they focused so much of that stuff, and then of course then you have the sale to Disney, you have Ultimate titles being canceled. You have guys like Mark leaving, doing his own stuff, and I still can't believe Bendis is over at DC. You know, like
well, that check was really big.
Yeah.
Tell me this: since his change, and the change is more than just going to DC. He went through a horrible sickness where he came out on the other side where he could have died. No kidding. And now it seems like he's more family-oriented, more softened around the edges, and his writing, that it does have moments of brilliance, but most of it just feels like, as you're scrolling through pictures on images, like, hey, there's another baby picture and another baby picture.
his Young Justice run.
You want to hear my theory? So my theory is this. You ever watch the Looney Tunes cartoons? And remember when Daffy Duck, when Daffy Duck is captured by these mobsters, and they basically think he's the goose that's going to lay the golden egg, and they keep telling him, all right, Duck, you've got 2 minutes to lay that golden egg, and you see Daffy trying to escape, and then finally they get in the room, they have the gun, and he's like, and he actually produced the golden egg, you know, and then they showed him all the boxes, and they're like, okay, you need to fill all these up, and then you see him just drained. He's just like breathing hard, and like he's just like on the verge of death or whatever. Like, you know, he can't believe. You see him sweating profusely. You know, that's how I feel Bendis was. Bendis was Daffy Duck. He was like, Marvel kept going to him. They're like, we want you to write 5 comic books every month, and then we want them to be all good, and you got to pump them out. You got to make us money. You know, and you know,
he was good. He was good, but then he is kind of like an artist. Like think of any of the great painters that do covers today. When you see their work at the very onset, you can tell they're putting their all into it.
Yep.
You settle into a groove where it's either the loss of background, loss of buildings, loss of something, or simplifications where they can churn out more. And it's still good, but it's not the same high level of quality or trying to reach their arms or stretch further or try harder. Instead, it becomes like Rob Liefeld. Let's hide the feet. Let's cover the arms, and hands, and guns, so I don't have to show fingers or dexterity.
Oh, absolutely. I think the minute that Bendis, and maybe this was around House of M, like maybe after he did House of M, when he did that event book, that's when it was like, okay, 5 books. You're doing your Ultimate Spider-Man, which, by the way, he was putting out 2 issues a month because of Bagley. Bagley was like, I'm tired, man. I want this to be over with. And Bendis is like, we've got to beat the record. And he's like, well, we need to speed this up. So you had 2 Ultimate Spider-Man issues coming out a month. Then you had him working on New Avengers. Then you had him working on, I don't know if he was still working on Daredevil at that point.
Daredevil he was still working on.
Yeah, and then he was like working on
Mighty Avengers. He had several Avengers titles.
Yeah.
Luckily, they never put him on a Amazing Spider-Man because I thought he was being channeled towards that. He was being given almost every event, or at least spin-offs off of events. He was tying together other people's books, so there was stuff going on behind the scenes that didn't involve this writing. It was calls like, hey, I'm planning on doing this with Carol Danvers soon and changing her costume. Is that going to mess with any of your stories? Hold on a second. Let me check my Excel spreadsheet on what's going on in what month in theoretical fictional history. Okay, you're free to do what you want. So he was fielding all this stuff too, continuity between all of his,
which
he was the bread and butter of Marvel.
Oh, absolutely. He was Mr. Character development. Like he was like, put your spin on this character and make this character popular or do this, but like once he reached a certain level of success, he was basically like, these are the characters I want to write. This is who I want. I'm doing New Avengers. I want Wolverine and Spider-Man in my book. Okay, whatever you want, Bendis. So it's just like one of those, and I think the other good thing that he had was, remember, Ultimate Marvel was the top selling books at that point too. So
it was a license to print money back then.
Yeah.
But that was because of the top tier creators. Once they started allowing in others and saying, okay, we'll allow Mark Millar to stop doing some of the Ultimate Fantastic Four to work on Civil War. That was when they started watering down the brand. Yeah. That was the start. When they started bringing in people like, not Brian K. Vaughan, because he was still top tier, but maybe Brian Wood. Some of the later issues, gloss over until we work into the next story arc until, well, he's good enough. And it just became good enough, not let's make it top tier that every issue is going to be like $10 by the end of the week, $20 next week. It started, but that's because, as you were saying earlier, Disney, that purchase and the disclosures they'd have to sign for morality agreements. Can you imagine Warren Ellis, this hard-drinking, badass mother? I'm sorry, am I allowed to use the...
Yeah, you're allowed to everything.
Could you imagine giving somebody like an Alan Moore or lesser off Mark Millar, people that love using the F-bombs, like a morality clause going, okay, not allowed to drink, not allowed to swear on Instagram or Facebook. What the fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
And they'll go, okay, I'll play along until they go, hey, what's Image offering? Hey, DC, you hiring? Are you going to let me write Superman? Oh, you're giving that to Bendis? Maybe DC's not good either. Okay, here's the place to go. I have my own new creator-owned series. Or, hey, I'm starting a new line over at AWA or Ahoy.
Right.
That explains so much today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, thankfully, the comic book industry is healthy enough that a lot of these creators, they can go to Image. They can go to another publisher. They can self-publish. They can make their own comics if they want to. So it's great that they can do all this. They have these options, and like I was even talking to my buddy Marco the other day. I was just like, imagine if comic books got so bad that DC closed up shop, Marvel closed up shop. Obviously so many comic book fans would be going crazy. They'd be going nuts like, oh, this is it. This is comic books are over. And and but people forget, like, you still have Image, right? And so Image is self-owned. You don't have a corporate company controlling Image. So like I always have this thought, this idea that if Marvel does close up shop, DC closes up shop, finally Image will get their #1 ranking, right? And they'll rise up, and then like people, all the people that still want to collect comic books, they'll be like, okay, I guess I'm going to start buying more Image books or start buying more publishers. Like all the other publishers will actually thrive, because of Marvel and DC being gone. So like these are like worst case scenarios. Like I don't want them to be gone. I want them to be around, and I want them to do well and flourish. The problem though is the corporate companies always getting involved and saying, "Listen, we need to make money. How are you guys going to make money?" But there's a little bit of hope. There's a little bit of hope because the fact that DC, I feel like DC's copying Boom's strategy, because like the publishers, the people in charge of Boom, they've been talking about how their numbers have been actually improving. Their sales, they're going up, and it's not because they're putting out more books. It's because they're focusing on quality. When you put out good quality stories, and of course, they get turned into graphic novels. Word of mouth spreads. More people are buying those books. The sales are going up. So with DC canceling a lot of their titles, they're really shrinking how many books they're putting out. But I really feel like they're kind of just pulling everything in together, and they're saying, okay, let's put out some really good stories. Let's do the playbook that Boom is doing. Let's do that with us. And then as we continue to grow and do better, our numbers are doing better, and our bosses are like, hey, look, you guys are actually making money. This is great. Then DC will be allowed to expand, and But I think more importantly, I really hope that they find more new talent. Like I feel like Marvel's been finding more new talent, but they're not finding more new talent for the sake of
good new talent. Not
they're just like, hey, they're probably going to the editors and writers and artists like, hey, who do you recommend? They're basically just recommending their friends. They're saying, hey, this person I think is a good writer. Or, I think this person is a good artist. Hook them up with a job. Versus, no, let me look at their portfolio. Let me look at their work. Let me see what they put out. And if I like their style,
Kelly Sue DeConnick got her first job, right? Doing comics. She basically just walked into Image's office and said, I have an idea for something called Bitch Planet. And editors just went, we very much want to be in business with somebody that has an idea of a book called Bitch Planet. She didn't need to say anything else other than the title, and that was it. Sometimes all you need is just like that impetus, is a little bit of genius, and you can start a whole career. Just make sure that you don't screw up and say something awful.
Well, you said it was Kelly Sue DeConnick, right?
Did I screw that up?
Well, no, because I'm pretty sure that was her that did Bitch Planet. I remember when she put out Bitch Planet, she had already been working for Marvel, and I think she already kind of, she was already working for Marvel, and I think she had been working on the Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel comic book, I think. So she, I think, already got recognition from that. Like, a lot of the people at Image, like from what I've heard, because I've had friends submit to Image, and Image, believe it or not, they get a lot of submissions, and it's hard to get a book done by Image. From word of mouth, I've heard that you essentially have to be friends with somebody in Image, and they have to basically give the okay to the other people at Image, saying, hey, I know this guy, let's get him a book.
And even still, the print runs are really low. I mean, there is a book called Workstain that I think any of the random issues, like issue 7, you're going to be paying $30, $50 a piece. Why? Print run of under 5,000. Good Parallel, Savage Dragon, anything that's an Image book that if it's not selling great, you know that the print run's going to be 3,000 to 5,000 print run. So they'll put your book out, but it's kind of up to you to make it good and then make people actually buy it. Otherwise, it's not going to get past 6 issues. Walking Dead, the reason why this guy became so big was because he put in everything and the kitchen sink because he was afraid they won't let us get past 3 issues. Oh my God, I'm at issue 3. Let's see how much further I can push this. Let's throw in everything in the kitchen sink till issue 6. Oh my God, I'm at issue 12. And then finally, I'm at issue 50. I'm just kind of bullshitting this along at this point because, hey, they're allowing me to do anything. So sometimes it was great, sometimes it's not. But whenever you start believing in your own bullshit, that's kind of when things go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. I agree. I mean, Robert Kirkman, some people think like he's like one of the greatest comic book writers, and I disagree. I think he created a couple properties that are, fun. They're fun. They're enjoyable to read. He's created characters that you can relate to and like, and he doesn't deserve all the credit. The other credit also goes to the artists
Oh yeah.
who kind of like breathed life into the character and they drew it and they brought this quality of art to mesh with the story and the ideas that Kirkman created. So it's like he doesn't deserve all the credit, even
Yeah,
though
but now the artist and him can't even get along at a con, so they can't even sit together at a con. So
Which
that's
artist?
even worse. It's the first artist he ever worked with.
Charlie Adler.
Tony Moore.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but that's because Tony Moore, he probably didn't even think that Walking Dead would have blown up to what it was.
Yeah.
And so you got to cover your bases, cover all your bases. Thankfully, getting a good lawyer, and a good lawyer stepping in and making sure that Tony gets more of a cut than he was legally supposed to get. But there's so much money being made because of the TV show that, I'm sure the judges were like, yeah, like he deserves some of that money. He technically in comic book terms, he is co-creator. You give him the co-creating rights and he's the artist and you're the writer. It just depends. It depends on the contract signed. It depends on the laws.
Yeah.
The whole situation.
Up until about last year, when he's pretty much walking away from the entire property, did about the same thing with Invincible because he has his money. He doesn't want to fight anything, but he's seeing that AMC has basically taken away his whole baby, and he's not exactly pulling a Cartman. I'm going to take my ball and go home. He's not doing that exactly, but he is.
Yeah.
And he has every right to do so because. It's kind of like you might have watched this new movie from HBO Max, Class Action Park. Way back in the day, if you went to this water park up in New Jersey and your ass got injured, which was very likely because there were about 100 injuries every day. We're talking broken bones, degloving of your skin, which means when an entire panel of your skin comes ripping right off, you'll try and sue that place, and the lawyers go, it's not going to be worth it to sue. Why not? Because they employ our entire town. That's pretty much what any judge is going to say and render an opinion for with Walking Dead as a television property. You want this? It's great. You want this as an individual and as a creator, and we'll give you a certain extent. But overall, we employ all these people, and this is now bigger than just you. You were the creator, but the writers are intent to do whatever they want to do. It's a separate property, and so you go, I'm done. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Oh, he doesn't want the hassle. Yeah. I mean, in the end, he wrote the comic book. So in the end, to him, I think that's all that matters. I think, because I'm sure he's heard stories. He's talked to other people who have, their properties have been adapted into films and television. And I'm sure he's heard all these horror stories.
Yep.
So, like, if he's smart, which he is, he knows that it's only a matter of time before, the studio, the channel, whatever, it's only a matter of time that they're going to tear apart his baby on television. But at the end of the day, though, he makes sure that he gets the money that he deserves and wants. And so, and he just, it's just one of those, like, you get what you pay for, hey, I think he sleeps better at night knowing, like, hey, at least I got the money, because there's nothing worse than for them to rip apart and destroy your baby,
right,
and get paid very little money for it. He got millions.
Right.
So,
and the sad thing is creators don't get really a choice of other than whatever you produce to the world. That's good for your fans, but once it's out in the world, it belongs to the entire world, and it's not up to you what happens to it sometimes.
Right.
So it's kind of like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle with Sherlock Holmes. Do you think that maybe he might have a problem with Benedict being some drug addict, which was exactly his character way back in the day? But I'm sure that every creator would have a little bit of a problem with a little bit of tinkering here and there.
Right.
But overall, they're not going to remember. It's just the property that matters in the end, I guess.
Right. And not to mention, there's so many fans and so many people and so many, like, criticisms, right? That's why, like, I've gotten to the point where anytime I get into a discussion about, art or, discussion about, television and film and people giving their opinions. The only absolute answer that you can give is it's all subjective, you know? And so, like, at the end of the day, someone takes your property and they do something different with it and you don't like it. Well, it is what it is. It's all subjective. You may not like it, but there's going to be other people that look at it and like it, you know, and you have to come to grips. It's almost like a control, what do you call it? Like, I forget the term, like, you know, people who are over controlling, like they have the need to, they have to be in control, you know? And, you know, eventually properties like that, you have to come to the understanding that you're going to lose control eventually, you know, like that's it. Like eventually someone else is going to take over. You're going to look at Stan Lee, you know, and I remember Mark Millar talking about how when he talked to Stan Lee, this is a beautiful, beautiful story. Like this was the beginning of Mark Millar leaving Marvel. What inspired him? Stan Lee inspired Mark Millar to leave Marvel. You know, like he asked Stan. So Stan, after all these years, you know, seeing the success of Spider-Man, seeing the comic book character still around, and people like writing the character and drawing the character, people still buying Spider-Man comics. How does that feel? You know, and you know, Stan being Stan, he's like, well, you know, it's, you know, I do appreciate it. You know, I think you know, I'm happy that people still love the character and like the character. As far as like other people writing it, you know, it's nice, but you know, that's when Stan said, you know, I got into this business and I made my own characters, and you know, that's what I think everyone else should be doing. Like, don't go into comic books and write my characters. Go into comic books and create your own characters. Create your Spider-Man, you know, and then work on that and do that. So that's like ultimately what inspired Mark Millar to leave Marvel, and then he started creating all of his own characters. And now Netflix buying Millar World Comics, now, like, you know, they're going to make all the TV shows and movies based off the characters that he creates, you know. So like that was a great deal on his part. Not to mention, part of the contract signing with Netflix, he gets to continue writing more. You know, he's Netflix's think tank right now. You know, and Netflix is like, they knew that they were going to lose the deal with Marvel and Disney. You know, they were like, they know that eventually Disney was going to go do their own thing. And so like the Marvel shows that they did, like Daredevil, Punisher, Defenders, you know, Luke Cage, they knew that eventually they were going to lose that. And they weren't going to be able to make more. So what do? They go and they buy a comic book publisher type business. They buy Mark Millar, they buy his ideas, his stories, his characters, they own them. And now they're going to make them into TV shows and movies. And then watch, like Old Guard. I haven't watched it yet. I haven't had Netflix in a couple months.
It's actually great. It's actually great. Yeah, really good.
I heard it's really great. They said that even the movie was so good that the sales in the graphic novels have been boosted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's great for Greg Rucka, great for Old Guard, and that's just for Old Guard.
Yeah, it brought up sales for the second season. Well, not second season, if you want to call it a second season, second volume. They were just starting. It was almost like they had the synchronicity going that the second series was going, where people went, I just finished watching the movie. Is there anything more? It's like, yeah, we're right in the middle of putting out the series. And it caused those first few issues of the second series to spike because, holy crap, now people actually want to keep reading more. It's like, hey, Daredevil, you saw the first series? Yeah, where can I get some more of that shit, man?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Man, and I got some right here.
Yeah.
And then look at the success with Umbrella Academy, like especially the second season. So many people have become more fans and jumped on board with Umbrella Academy with season 2 that I'm sure the sales are going off the roofs, you know. So, you know, thankfully I have a good amount of Mark Millar books. So I'm hoping, like, once, you know, these movies and TV shows start getting made and they get really popular, I'm gonna have some nice books to put on eBay and make some money off of.
All right, guys, I'm gonna call it now. So I'm gonna call the show now.
Okay.
Getting a little time. All right, Rob, what you got going on this week?
So coming this Wednesday, it's a brand new episode of Not Near Mint. We're going to be having a new guest on talking about their Kickstarter. We'll talk more about that. You'll see that on my Instagram, but we do a show on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. My channel, Not Near Mint. It's Lady Fantastic, myself, Comics on the Mind, and Miracle Man. Look forward to seeing y'all.
All righty.
Awesome.
And then what you got going on, Randall?
Well, I'm just going to be working on my weekly shipments of from UCS with my DC books coming in. Diamond apparently is still sending me more books. I don't know why. I haven't ordered from them.
They really like you. That's what it is.
No, they really want to charge me $60. You know.
Yeah.
I literally have like maybe 10 or 12 comic books coming in, and I'm paying my whole bill is like $60.
No, okay.
You know, and it's ridiculous. I'm tired of it. I can't wait. I'm waiting for that to end. But yeah, I'm just working on my books, and then still got to do my YouTube stuff.
Yeah. You still gotta go live first.
I gotta get a video up, and then I can promote it.
Yeah.
I have to put all that away. This is stuff that I just wound up getting over the last week.
Nice. Was that the first Phantasm you got there?
Yeah, and funny thing, it's great condition, but it had a sticker right here that somebody put on. So I took a heat gun, put that over, and otherwise.
Oh, smart.
Damn near perfect condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know that Tom King was supposed to put out his Batman Catwoman series, and I know Phantasm. They were going to try to introduce Phantasm.
Eventually. Yeah, he'll eventually put it out. But all right, guys. This is Extreme Nerd Table. You never know who I'm gonna have next week. Rob might come back. You never know, guys. But I'm gonna have Robert G's show's gonna be on my channel next week. Robert asked me to actually have it on my channel, so I'm gonna have it on mine. The comic, you guys already know it's actually midnight east. It's midnight East Coast this time. We'll actually go at 12 o'clock midnight East Coast time, not Robert's time. So it'd be a little earlier for you guys. And then we'll have Silver Age Sundays, Cantonese Comic Wednesdays. That's all I got going on, guys. Alrighty, and we'll see you guys later.
Don't die.